My fusion system. Fusing 1,000 chickens at the start. Chapters 417 to 422. Chapter 417. The competition begins. Seedy, are you done messing around? We haven't decided who will get that youth because we didn't expect him to arrive so soon. However, we can make a decision now. The shadow with large and small gears on its back, the god of light, Balder, spoke, suppressing the voices of the many gods. As he spoke, Balder's shadow on the wall squirmed a little, as if it had changed its direction. Even though he could not see his eyes, Watson felt like someone was staring at him, and a sense of oppression subconsciously rose in his heart. Balder, we agree with your suggestion. There won't be any results if we continue arguing like that. Tell me, what are your rules? The one who spoke next was the god with a dragon tail and a harp in his hands, Agaras, who controlled the wind and navigation. My conditions are very simple. Since there is only one young man, then one of the 7 gods will decide the winner here. The winner will get Watson. Is not that enough? Quote. As Balder's voice fell, the surroundings fell into a short silence. Balder, as the leader of the 7 gods, your power is the strongest. Isn't that unfair to us who are not good at fighting? After a short silence, the first god to speak was a goddess who had the moon's silhouette on her shoulder. Floating meteors surrounded the outline of the moon. Even just looking at the shadows of those meteors, one could imagine the actual appearance of those meteors. That was one of the kingdom's 7 gods, the goddess who represented the moon and love, Diana. Diana, if you don't want to participate, you can choose not to participate. That means that you have voluntarily given up. The world has always respected the strong. It is the same for the gods. Changing the rules because they're not good, that is just an excuse for the weak. Coincidentally, the kingdom has 7 gods too many. I can take that opportunity to kill a few of you so that I can occupy more of the people's faith. After Diana, a man wrapped in bandages and covered in spikes let out a low and hoarse voice. A strong smell of blood rose from his mouth. It was Ares, the god of war and hunting. He was the most terrifying and warlike existence among the 7 gods in the kingdom. His sculptures stood in the side hall of the cathedral. Usually, the people's primary faith was responsible for annihilating the enemy in the cathedral. Ares, your words are so annoying. Be careful that you don't get killed by us. Even though we might not be as powerful as you, if 2 or 3 of us were to join forces, even you would have no choice but to end up in a miserable state. Sweet laughter rang out. At that moment, the one who spoke was Gaia, also known as Mother Earth. Gaia was different from the image of the loving mother in the cathedral. The real Gaia was a young girl with a giant curved horn taller than her body and extended from the top of her head. It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter if 2 or 3 of you are working together or otherwise, it doesn't make any difference. In any case, I will kill everything that stands in my way. Ares snorted coldly at Gaia's ridicule. His attitude was still one of pride. What about you? You have not expressed your opinion, Aemon, the time traveler. Quote. Balder's shadow on the wall turned its gaze to the last cluster of shadows on the wall. When Watson heard the name Aemon, he subconsciously turned his head and realized that the shadow that Balder was staring at was pitch black. He could only vaguely see a black windbreaker fluttering in the wind, but he could not clearly see who was inside or what the person looked like. He did not know why, but as he stared at the black shadow, Watson felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity in his heart. I feel a familiar presence. Is it just my imagination? Or is it because that god's name is the same as the name of my subordinate in the Severed Fingers gang? Aemon was not a rare name in that kingdom because the 7 gods had only become the kingdom's faith for less than 10 years. Before that, the kingdom believed in the demoness cult. Therefore, it was understandable that some people were named Aemon. Some people even deliberately named themselves as one of the gods' name to show off. Watson did not care about that. It was just that the names were the same. It was not like he had not seen it before. He had also seen 2 people named List at the border. However, one of them was his subordinate, while the other was the manor owner who had been killed. As he was thinking, Aemon said, Balder, god of light, I have no interest in your discussion and do not wish to participate in your battle. Time traveler, are you saying that you do not intend to get that youth? Balder asked. The time traveler had rarely spoken in their meetings. Even when he spoke, he only maintained a neutral attitude, neither agreeing nor disagreeing. That was the first time that the time traveler had expressed his disapproval. That made Balder somewhat puzzled. All the gods knew what Watson's body contained, and that thing was a fatal temptation for them. It was impossible for the time traveler not to want that thing. Did he have a special plan? The other gods also fell into deep thought. After a long while, Balder shook his head. No matter what you were planning, you said that you would not participate. Then, the six of us will be competing for that youth. From now on, no matter what methods we use, no matter how we form factions, the six of us only need to choose one. Wait, Balder, I have a suggestion regarding that. King Landhar III, who had been watching coldly from the side, suddenly spoke. Oh, King Landhar III, what suggestion do you have? Quote, I don't have any objections if you all want to fight, but if all of you die in battle, wouldn't my kingdom lose a few gods' blessings? That will cause my people to fall into panic, and I don't want to see that happen. Since that's the case, why don't you choose a gentler way of fighting? For example, you can send your doppelgangers from outside the world to the kingdom and use their battle to decide on who Watson belongs to. The king's eyes flickered slightly. That's right, King Landhar III. Let's do it that way. I hope you can give us physical bodies that can unleash our full strength. Don't worry, I will not disappoint you. Then let's end this conversation. King Landhar III, let us know when you have prepared the bodies. As soon as his voice fell, the god's projection on the wall disappeared, and the secret chamber returned to silence. The flames on the ground had turned from green to fiery red. Things have been settled. Come on, Watson, let's go. Quote, picking up the torch on the ground, King Landhar III turned around and walked out of the secret passage. Watson followed behind him, and when he saw the king place the torch on it as he approached the passage, he chuckled softly. Your Majesty, what are you laughing at? Nothing. I just remembered something joyous, King Landhar III replied perfunctorily, leading Watson out of the passage and sealing the door to the secret chamber with a bed. Watson, when you faced the gods just now and heard that I was going to sacrifice you to them, did you want to attack me? Your Majesty, why would I do that? Are you joking with me? It doesn't matter if you don't admit it. I felt an obvious killing intent at that moment, but it doesn't matter. Under that situation, it would be problematic if you pretended to be calm. I have no choice but to apologize to you. I exposed you to danger without explaining it to you. However, all of that is for my plan. I have to bring the 7 gods to the kingdom. You should understand that, right? Of course, I understand. However, there is something I don't quite get. I hope you can give me an answer, Your Majesty. Quote, Watson hesitated for a moment, but he still asked, just now, you said that you will prepare the bodies for the 7 gods. Don't tell me that they need to occupy other people's bodies? What will happen to those people? Watson, that has nothing to do with you. You don't have to ask anymore. Quote, all right, Your Majesty, we're done for today. If there's nothing else, you can go back. Rest well and prepare for the competition in 2 days. I'm really looking forward to your performance. Yes, Your Majesty, I'll take my leave now. Watson pretended to be respectful and turned to leave the king's bedroom. The moment he walked out of the bedroom, the wind blew on the sweat on his body and immediately evaporated. At the same time, his face turned from childish to serious as he muttered in his heart, sure enough, I can't let the king live. Previously, he had only heard about the brutality of King Landhar III from others. At the moment, he had seen it with his own eyes. If he had been attacked in the secret chamber, he would have died. As for the killing intent toward King Landhar III, he had released it deliberately. He thought it was abnormal to have no killing intent toward King Landhar III under such circumstances. Fortunately, the king did not see through that and let him leave. In addition to the deal that King Landhar III and the 7 gods had mentioned, they would need to occupy 7 bodies if the gods wanted to descend to the mortal realm. Watson remembered Sidi's projection when it occupied the unicorn. The people who were occupied would definitely be in extreme pain. Watson did not think that it would be a good thing, no matter how the king would do that. Before King Landhar III's plan succeeds, I must speed up the process of overthrowing him. Watson quickly left the palace. Not long after he left, a tall man in armor arrived outside the king's bedroom. He lowered his voice and called out, Your Majesty, it's me, Hone. Come in. Hone walked into the palace and found King Landhar III sitting behind a desk, tapping his fingers on the table. He seemed to be deep in thought, and his gaze was frightening. Hone subconsciously lowered his head. I asked you to stay outside and observe Watson in secret. Did Watson look strange when he left, or did he see someone and show anything wrong? No, Your Majesty. Watson did not meet anyone when he left. As for what was wrong, perhaps here was anger on his face. Anger? Then it doesn't matter. Maybe I'm overthinking, King Landhar III murmured softly. His action that time was the same as what Watson had thought. He was simply testing Watson to see if he could not break the soul oath he had made. After all, Watson had many skills. In addition, he had something that even the gods were interested in, which made him feel uncertain. However, after that experiment, he felt much more at ease. Under that kind of environment, Watson could not even make a move. Instead, he unwillingly offered his body. It really looked like he was bound by the oath and could not betray it. However, I can't just give the thing in Watson's body to those gods for free. That kind of magical thing has to be in my hands. Quote, King Landhar III clenched his palm as if he was holding the world in his palm. He already had a vague guess about the thing in Watson's body. According to his guess, it must be related to the fact that he could produce many platinum-tier weapons and precious sun and moon gemstones. Whether it was Watson or the gods, they were just pawns to him. Everything was going according to his plan. The day to fulfill his long-cherished wish was approaching. Hone, take some gifts from the palace and give them to Watson. Tell him they are rewards for him, King Landhar III said. He was quite satisfied with the results of the test. Next, he could put aside his suspicions about Watson and make good use of it to strengthen the kingdom. Yes, Your Majesty. Although he answered respectfully, Hone did not leave immediately. Instead, he showed hesitation on his face. What's the matter? Why are you still standing here? There is one thing. Didn't one of our platinum-tier Thunderclawed dragon die? When the Dragon King, Fafnir, learned of that, he sent us a letter to ask about it. He wants us to investigate the whole incident and give him an explanation. If we can't do it, he will cut off all ties with our kingdom. I almost forgot about that. How dare a mere Dragon King, who is only one of the ruling classes of the Dragon Clan, be so proud? Who does he think I am? King Landhar III smacked his forehead and sneered. The Holy Dragon Kingdom didn't have enough power in the past. I might have been worried about losing the Dragon Clan's help, but now I'm no longer afraid. When I give Watson a gift later, I'll also prepare a gift for Fafnir. That gift will include 100 sun fruits and 10 platinum-tier longswords. Those things are worth 10 dead dragons. I think they're enough to shut Fafnir's mouth. After Watson returned to the Sword Saint's courtyard, he was interrogated by his two masters, Antonio and Reed. They asked him about the things that King Landashar III had shown in the hall. They asked if he had given them to him. It was no wonder that the two masters were puzzled. After all, in their eyes, Watson was against the king. Why did he suddenly give so many good things to the king? Not only did he expose his own strength, but he also looked like he was related to the king's family. Could it be that Watson had changed his mind? Watson made up an excuse. He only said that he gave those things to the king to lower the king's vigilance and prevent him from continuing to attack himself and the people around him. As for tonight's conversation with the king and even the gods, Watson only mentioned the part about Kiana, and did not say anything else. It was not that he did not trust his two masters, but he felt like if the two masters knew that his life had just been threatened, they would definitely be enraged and inevitably do something out of line. After going through the interrogation of the two masters and spending a few hours explaining himself, Watson dragged his tired body back to his room. There were still 2 days left before the exhibition match at the Royal Academy. There was one thing that King Landhar III was right about. He could not marry Princess Kiana, but he could not refuse to become the future emperor. In order to get that qualification, he had to win the competition, so he had to prepare well for those 2 days. 2 days passed very quickly. During those 2 days, other than the two masters and Christina who came to look for him, Watson had been staying in his room to cultivate. During that time, the king sent General Hone to send a gift. Even though it was said to be a reward for Watson, Antonio and Reed both felt like it was because Watson had offered the sun fruit and platinum weapons, so His Majesty would thank Watson. However, most of the gifts were golden tier ginseng, 7-leaf sunflowers, and other medicinal herbs. They were utterly incomparable to what Watson had given them. Seeing that, the two masters shouted that His Majesty was stingy. Watson could not be bothered to explain the misunderstanding between the two masters. It was worth mentioning that after General Hone, Charlotte of the Saint Laurent family had come to him once and talked to him a lot about the genius Nia of the Saint Laurent family. She had repeatedly told him to avoid a direct confrontation with Nia during the battle. If he had to admit defeat, it was fine. Watson was grateful for Charlotte's actions. Charlotte was clearly a member of the Saint Laurent family, yet she had come to remind him. If others knew about that, it would be terrible. However, he did not take her words to heart. That was because he had no way out of that battle. Watson, are you ready? The carriage is already waiting outside. It's 7 o'clock in the morning. There's still an hour before the opening ceremony of the exhibition match at 8 o'clock. The familiar voice of Christina came from outside the door, causing Watson, who was sitting cross-legged on the bed, to open his eyes. A sharp glint flashed in his eyes. It's time. After 2 days of recovery, his strength had risen to the peak. Not only was his strength restored in all aspects, but it was also sufficient to deal with the following battles. Miss Tina, let's go. Getting out of bed and pushing open the door, Watson was dressed in a white robe. On his back was the holy relic, the holy sword of time, which Marcus had given him a few days ago. He smiled and nodded at Christina, who was also dressed in light armor and ready to go. However, his gaze looked past Christina to the distant sky. He, Watson, had arrived for the Royal Academy's exhibition match. Chapter 418. The Gathering of Geniuses. Hundreds of carriages were parked in front of the Royal Academy. Some of the vehicles were lavishly ornamented, and the horses in charge of pulling them were powerful magical monsters rather than ordinary horses. Some of them appeared to be ordinary, and the wagon wheels were caked with mud. They seemed to have just arrived. The crowds gathered at the Royal Academy's entrance were considerably larger. According to a preliminary estimate, there were no fewer than 100,000 individuals, and the number continued to grow. Watson and Christina had just arrived at the Royal Academy's entrance when the crowd mobbed them. Those two individuals are Sword Saint Academy participants. Lady Christina is one of them. Lady Swordmistress is only 20 years old and is already a Platinum Tier elite. She is also a popular candidate to win this competition because of her outstanding strength. The Royal Academy has even made an exception to recruit her regardless of her age. The second person is the astrologer and the Sword Saint's disciple. He is only 12 years old. Even though I don't know how strong he is definitely not weak. Some people gestured toward Watson and Christina, while others stood in front of them with zealous looks. Young Master Watson, please give me an autograph. Lady Swordmistress, may I shake your hand? The winner would be eligible to marry the princess and become the next king if they compete in the tournament. In such situations, anyone who had a chance of winning was someone they wanted to know. It was highly possible that once they became engaged with such a person, they would brag about it for the rest of their lives. Even if they did not win, the king would value them, and they would become a celebrity in the future if they performed well in the tournament. A little autograph might be worth 100 gold pieces at that time. In response to the enthusiastic greetings of the onlookers, Watson was in a hurry to deal with them. On the other hand, Christina, who was at the side, was very familiar with the circumstance. It seemed like she often dealt with similar situations. I can't believe you have such strength, Watson, but you're not used to being in this kind of situation? Christina peered to the side as she casually shook hands with a few admirers, watching Watson scribbling a crooked name on a piece of parchment that was given to him. She smiled despite the sweat on her brow. I can't believe how enthusiastic the people of the capital are. That most likely has something to do with your status as the world's greatest genius. The citizens would never treat others in this manner. A yell of surprise erupted from the crowd around Christina and Watson during their question and answer session. Young Master Augustus from the Campbell family's team is here, the so-called favorite to win the title. Please move to the side. The mob around Watson and Watson dispersed one by one after hearing the voice. Amid the mob, a blazing red carriage appeared. The carriage was pulled by an earth dragon with 2 horns and a body completely engulfed in flames. The deadly eyes of the earth dragon examined its surroundings. Wisps of flames erupted from its wide nostrils, causing the people in the area to flee. The earth dragon was as powerful as a gold tier elite, and it was surrounded by red armored guards. There were 50 people, all of whom were wielding long spears. The surrounding air was thick with tyranny the minute that massive group came. The carriage door opened as the Earth Dragon's carriage arrived in front of the Royal Academy, and a golden hot carpet rolled forward. Armand, the Campbell family's patriarch, alighted from the carriage, followed by Augustus, who was dressed to the nines. After alighting from the carriage, Armand first scanned his surroundings, revealing an elegant smile unique to noblemen. Then, he saw Watson, who was not far away. His expression was slightly stiff, and his white beard trembled. Very quickly, he turned his head away, deliberately not looking at the younger man. On the contrary, Augustus, who was beside him, had a flash of coldness in his scarlet eyes when he saw Watson. The corners of his mouth curled upward as he walked straight to the other man. "Oh, Lady Swordmistress and Watson? We meet again." Augustus appeared to be a little different than he had seen at the king's feast a few days before. He was slightly taller. Then, even though it was a hot day, Augustus was dressed in tight clothing. His palms were covered in black gloves, and he had an oversized scarf over his neck. Except for his face, he had almost no visible skin at all. "Tina, it's almost time for the competition. Let's go in." Watson grimaced slightly, sensing a new sense of danger from Augustus, but he had no intention of dealing with Augustus. He turned around and prepared to walk with Christina toward the Royal Academy. However, before he could enter, Augustus flashed more than 10 meters forward at an astonishing speed and stood before him. "Watson, it is not proper etiquette for a noble to turn away when someone is talking to you." "Young Master Augustus, may I know why you are stopping me?" Watson asked, calmly staring at Augustus. "Watson, I have no intention of doing anything to you. After all, the Royal Academy's competition has yet to begin. I'm merely here to provide you with some advice. I'm hoping you'll be able to give it your all at the tournament later. Don't be so ready to dismiss others before meeting with me. If you are eliminated before me, I will be extremely disappointed, as I will be unable to defeat you personally. Don't worry, young Master Augustus. I won't lose so easily. Like you, I'm looking forward to our fight. Is that so, Watson? It appears that you've realized that I'm not the same guy the first used to be." In the past, losing to Watson was a source of embarrassment for him. Watson had stated that he wanted to battle with him, indicating that he had realized his strength. Even if he didn't want to believe it, being acknowledged by the guy who had previously lost to him was extremely helpful to him. "After all, fighting you would save me a great deal of energy. It will allow me to take another step toward becoming the champion." "Watson, you..." Augustus was furious. His body emitted an increasingly dangerous aura. The scarf around his neck and the thick clothes covering his body floated in the absence of wind. Augustus had assumed that Watson knew that he had changed, but he had not expected Watson to humiliate him on purpose. He was unable to control his rage due to that. He was close to attacking Watson in public before the competition. He wanted Watson to be aware of his power. However, his actions were halted before he could do so. A terrible chill had caused that. Along the path, the frigid air spread. A thick layer of pitch-black ice had formed on the ground. Nia, dressed in a purple outfit, was walking on the ice. Nia had Charlotte by her side, assisting her in dragging the clothing. A carriage bearing the Saint Laurent family's symbol and a few senior members of the Saint Laurent family were behind her. The elders kept a safe distance from Nia. "Move aside, Augustus. You're blocking the road." Nia did not stop after walking behind Augustus and spoke rudely. "Nia, the road is so wide. Why do you have to walk through me? Are you deliberately picking on me?" Augustus berated Nia. When Nia did not give in, he glanced at Watson and clicked his tongue. "Two annoying fellows have gathered. It's all right. I'll deal with you both in the competition. Just you wait." Quote. Then, Augustus turned around and left. Nia nodded at Watson. "Last time, I was unable to buy the sun gem in your hands, and I feel very regretful. But Charlotte told me that it was because you didn't want me to spend 1.5 million gold coins to buy it. You tricked Augustus, so thank you." "You're welcome." Watson subconsciously acknowledged her by raising his brows. Nia walked past him and entered the academy. That made him uncomfortable. Who in their right mind would turn around and walk away without waiting for a response? Nia also stated that Charlotte instructed her to do that. Was she thanking Charlotte instead of him? Watson noticed Charlotte giving him a regretful look and followed Nia into the academy just as he was perplexed. This year, the Royal Academy is overflowing with geniuses. Augustus, the Flame Consul, and the Ice Demoness from the Saint Laurent family, have arrived, the twin prides of ice and fire. Then, there is also the Sword Saints and the Astrologer's Disciple. It'll be a fascinating competition. Many people gathered after the members of the Saint Laurent family arrived. They were discussing it fervently. It's not just the St. Lawrence and the Campbells. I heard that the members of the Ptolemy family are also here. Now, the geniuses of the three archdukes are gathered in one place. But I heard that the Ptolemy family doesn't have any outstanding people compared to the other two families. The main family's Casey is a useless young master, while Lana is weak and sickly. You don't know about that? A few days ago, those two young masters and young ladies of the Ptolemy family had somehow risen to gold tier status. Furthermore, someone said they saw young Master Casey displaying a platinum tier weapon in front of a certain weapon shop. With the help of such a powerful weapon, it's tough to say whether they will win or lose. Other than the children of the great noble families, some geniuses from the common families have also come. I heard that they include the son of the leader of the famous adventurer group, Steel Wings, Arthur, and the young archer, Nero, nicknamed Sun Chasing Bow. Arthur's father was a famous gold-tier peak elite in the capital and the provinces. Arthur is only 15 years old this year and is already a gold-tier elite. As for the archer Nero, she is even more powerful. The young girl is an abandoned orphan. A magical beast raised her since she was young, and she has a vision that is different from that of a human. Amid the surrounding discussions, a golden-haired Arthur walked toward the academy under the escort of a group of burly mercenaries. During that time, he shook his hair. Coupled with the massive sword on his back and his resolute face, it caused several young girls to cheer. The young girl named Nero rode on a giant gold-tier storm eagle and descended rapidly from the sky, stirring a gust of violent wind. Those are the elites in our kingdom. Before the competition, His Majesty sent out invitations to the whole world, inviting foreign envoys to watch this grand event. The Winter Nation even sent their elites to participate in that competition. Look, those people are from the Winter Nation who are participating in that competition. Someone made a gesture toward the direction of the horizon. Everyone looked over, following that person's finger, and saw a snow-white polar bear-like magical beast on the ground. 3 men and 1 woman stood next to the mystical beast, wearing huge fur coats. The leader wore a long beard as if he were a savage, only his wild stare was visible. His fur coat was not wrapped around his torso like the others but instead was open, showing the same thick hair on his chest. The other 2 were not particularly tall. The man wore a monocle over his right eye and had short silver hair. He was quietly looking at everything around him while holding it in his hand. The woman was in good shape. She had wavy sky blue hair and wore a crystal crown in addition to her hefty fur coat. Douglas, it appears that the Holy Dragon Kingdom's so-called geniuses aren't that powerful. Can I kill them all later? The hairy barbarian looked around and spoke in a low voice in the direction of the Winter Nation's 3-person squad. Herald, you must keep your cool. On the one hand, His Majesty sent us here to see the King of the Holy Dragon Kingdom, and on the other hand, to test the might of their geniuses. After all, the Dragonspine Snow Mountain had crumbled a while ago, removing the obstacle to invading the Holy Dragon Kingdom. In that regard, the Holy Dragon Kingdom's king is a complete moron. It's one thing to conduct a competition like this, but he also invited visitors from other kingdoms. Did he want to reveal his kingdom's strength? The man named Douglas pushed up his monocle and analyzed it calmly. A person who has the potential to become a ruler cannot be stupid. Douglas, before you conceive an issue, you have to analyze the other party's conduct and also their identity as a whole. The conclusion will not deviate in this manner. The woman, who had been silent the entire time, spoke up. Yes, Your Highness. The 2 individuals respectfully addressed her. Let's get started. Whatever the Holy Dragon Kingdom's king has in mind, we only have one goal in mind when we are here. Let's just get on with it and do what we're meant to be doing. The 3-person team's antics drew the attention of a large number of bystanders. Some people's gazes rested on the 3 individuals before settling on the hairy man in the lead. That leader's beard is too thick. Even though those 3 were foreign candidates who were exempted from the Royal Academy's regulation, Only individuals under the age of adulthood are allowed to compete. He appears to be in his 30s. No, he's already 40 years old, I'm afraid. Is there no one left in the Winter Nation to send a group of adults? Also, the weather is so hot right now, but those people are wearing such thick fur. Isn't it hot in there? That's why they're all barbarians, they don't even know how to dress correctly. Hey, who are you calling a barbarian? Do you want to die? The three people from the Winter Nation were mocked by one of the observers. The so-called barbarian suddenly moved forward and vanished from the scene as soon as he finished speaking. Harold went to the bystander and hauled him up. Also, you said I look like I'm 40 years old? Are you blind? I'm only 14. Harold grabbed the bystander with one hand, and with the other hand, he pushed aside the thick hair and beard on his face, revealing a young and tender face. Help! Help! The people of the Winter Nation are trying to kill someone. When the barbarian grabbed the bystander, the latter's voice trembled as he screamed, catching the attention of several people around them. Watson was also there. Watson and Christina were about to enter the academy when they heard the commotion. When they turned around, they were confronted with that scene. They frowned. Those three people did not appear to be from the Holy Dragon Kingdom based on their attire. Only inhabitants from the Northern Realm, the Winter Nation, wore fur clothing, according to Master Antonio. Fur coats were made from magical beasts. It served as a status and strength symbol as well as a means of keeping them warm. Those three people were certainly not feeble, based on their fur coats. Everyone, this is the capital of the Holy Dragon Kingdom's capital. Please stop. Otherwise, even if you are guests from the Winter Nation, I will immediately strip you of your eligibility to participate in the competition. Within a few minutes after the bystander screamed, a teacher from the academy walked outside and stopped Harold. Okay, I will let him go. Harold laughed. He put the bystander on the ground. Well, to be precise, he smashed them onto the ground. The bystander lay on the ground, clutching his broken right hand. He was in so much pain that his head was covered in a cold sweat. Harold laughed out loud. I let him go, but I didn't expect that person's body to be so weak. His arm was already broken even before I exerted any strength. That's why you people are weak. In terms of physique and combat strength, you can't compare to the people from our kingdom, who have experienced many hardships. Those were the words that the bystanders had mocked him with, but he had modified them and used them to ridicule them instead. The people from the Holy Dragon Kingdom were furious. Flames appeared in their eyes. They clenched their fists. As if sensing the anger in their eyes, Harold laughed even more savagely. I heard that the winner of this competition will get the right to marry a princess. Look at how weak you all are. If I win this competition, doesn't that mean that your princess will be my wife? What should I do? Even though I'm not interested in weak women, I can still try the princess. I worry that I am too strong and your princess won't be able to take it. If she dies on the bed after a few days of marriage, that would be my fault. Who gave you the courage to make fun of our princess? A mere barbarian dares to talk nonsense here. I will teach you a lesson before the king arrives. We'll teach you the etiquette in the Holy Dragon Kingdom. After hearing Harold's statements, the instructor who had walked out of the academy could not handle it any longer. He sprang forward, his right hand coated in a layer of ferocious fire elemental combat aura. The combat aura condensed into a roaring lion's head that scorched the air in a 10-meter radius. He slammed his fist into Harold's face. That punch had a lot of force behind it. If hit, even steel would melt into dregs. Harold, on the other hand, did not avoid the punch. With a muffled crash, he let his fist rest on his torso. Harold appeared to be at ease as he stared down at his chest. His chest hair was not messy in the least. Is that the Holy Dragon Kingdom's so-called etiquette? One isn't enough, so I'm going to beat up on another. You people are extremely welcoming. How is that possible? The academy teacher looked at his fist in bewilderment. He did not have time to recover from his horror when he saw Harold raise his right leg and tumble toward him. A dozens of meter-long crack formed on the ground, accompanied by a muffled sound. The crack opened up and swallowed the teacher. Everyone there saw the man fall into the gap. Then, there were panicked screams and curses all around them. Chapter 419. A chaotic start to the competition. Hey, Harold, you've gone too far. When Harold's companion Douglas noticed a crack that extended several hundred meters in front of the Royal Academy, he could not help but speak up. What does it matter? Those people from the Holy Dragon Kingdom are a bunch of jerks. Furthermore, it was their comrade who insulted us. We were only trying to defend our kingdom's honor and give them a lesson. Even if the king of the Holy Dragon Kingdom knows about that, I believe he won't do anything to us. Harold snorted and looked at the chaotic scene around him. His eyes were full of disdain. They were there to participate in the Royal Academy's competition. If it were not to monitor the Holy Dragon Kingdom, they would not have bothered to compete. They thought the fresh-eyed geniuses were too green. His Majesty is too cautious with the Holy Dragon Kingdom. We should have sent troops and occupied this kingdom when the Dragonspine Snow Mountain collapsed. But His Majesty still wants us to investigate. Why bother about these weaklings? Harold could not help but mutter softly. Douglas, who heard his words, pushed his monocle upward and nodded. Indeed, it is difficult for me to understand His Majesty's intent on that point. Perhaps His Majesty is just trying to be safe. Speaking of which, those guys will only run away after getting injured. I thought that they would gather to target us. Fortunately, things didn't turn out like that. Otherwise, we might have to kill most of the people here and leave the stage before the match begins. When the two of them were talking, their expressions were relaxed, as if they did not take the people from the Holy Dragon Kingdom seriously at all. Hey, you, what are you doing here? You are obviously from Winter Nation, yet you behave atrociously in the Holy Dragon Kingdom. Let me teach you a lesson. A female voice sounded at that exact moment. Christina strode toward those three visitors from Winter Nation. Her hair and light armor glistened in the sunlight as they reflected a brilliant hue. She appeared heroic and valiant. Don't worry, everyone. I will protect you. You will be fine. It's Lady Swordmistress. If she wants to make a move, then we have nothing to fear. After all, she is the Sword Saint's daughter. I reckon that she can defeat all three of those foolish fellows by herself. The onlookers who had been running in all directions stopped in their tracks. They turned their heads and looked over with joy. A swordswoman? Christina's words had left a puzzled look on the faces of the three people from Winter Nation, who had also heard them. Douglas stroked his chin. I have heard about a genius girl in the Holy Dragon Kingdom who has reached Platinum Tier at a young age. She is the Sword Saint's daughter, and they called her Lady Swordmistress. No matter who she is, there is only one outcome for those who dare to stop us. If I beat the swordswoman here, I will have one less opponent in the competition later. Harold laughed arrogantly. He took a step forward and rushed toward Christina. He raised his right fist and smacked it toward her. That punch did not have any flashy fighting techniques. It was just pure speed and strength, but it was comparable to falling meteorites. Before it landed in front of Christina, the attack had already set off a storm, leaving cracks on the ground. If that punch landed on the ground, it would cause a large amount of damage in the same area as before. I've already told him to be careful. Why is he still so blasé? Douglas held his forehead while the girl, the one they called Princess, watched everything silently. The crowd, who were happy that Christina had stood up for them, could not help but swallow their saliva when they saw the power contained in Harold's fist. They looked terrified, and they subconsciously retreated. Even though they had confidence in Christina, they thought Christina might not be able to withstand that attack. Lie down on the ground obediently. Harold's face lit up with pride as he noticed the admiring glances from everyone in the room. Even more terrifying was the force he could channel into his fist. He appeared in front of Christina in the blink of an eye, and he was ready to strike her with his fist. Even though he did not use all of his strength in that one punch, it was more than enough for the job. He was a reckless individual, but he refused to question the established order. Killing an influential person in another kingdom was the same as asking for trouble. That punch was only meant to cripple Christina. That was what he had initially thought. However, the development of the situation has exceeded his expectations. Christina wielded a sword that stretched from her right index finger. Harold was knocked off his feet as a result of her gentle pointing of it in his direction. His body, which had just forcefully withstood a strike from a gold-tier elite, was unscathed. The river water had ripped his hair out of his head and shredded his fur coat, revealing his chiseled muscles beneath. His muscles, which were flickering in bronze, looked tougher than marble. However, those muscles could not withstand a single strike of the river water and were instantly torn apart. That was because the river water was not ordinary but was formed by a sword aura. Divine Water Moon Dance. Harold's eyes widened in surprise. He sat half kneeling on the ground and supported his weight with his hand. A deep ravine was left in the ground after his slip and slide. That strength is probably in the diamond tier. How can it be so strong? It is as expected of Lady Swordmistress. She defeated a powerful elite from the Winter Nation in one strike. As word spread that Christina had easily defeated Harold, so did the debates among the onlookers. It would appear that the Winter Nation's genius is not all that great. He clearly doesn't have the strength, but he talks so big. He even mentioned marrying the princess just moments ago. With that kind of power, I believe they will be defeated in a matter of steps. They can't even marry the princess's maids, let alone the princess. A well-dressed nobleman threw a jab at Harold. You are absolutely correct. Those people from the Winter Nation will be eliminated quickly, and I expect them to return to their homes in despair. It is possible that they will not have to wait until the competition to get their hands on something. Lady Swordmistress will eliminate them before the competition, another resident echoed. These words converged and reached Harold's ears, causing him to frown and his eyes to light up with rage. Your name is Harold? You attacked a teacher from the Royal Academy and even injured many of our citizens. That is my punishment for you. Now, I want you to apologize for your actions just now. Apologize? I did not use my full strength just now. If I used my full strength, you wouldn't be a problem at all. Harold rose to his feet, an ice-cold grin on his face. The woman in front of him only attacked him when he was not using all of his resources. That was why she was so fortunate to be able to push him away. If she thought she had already won after that, the sword mistress had grossly overestimated her abilities. I'll show you my true strength now. Super giant transformation, Harold roared. The black hair on his body began to thicken and spread all over his body in an instant. His muscles expanded. His body swelled from 2 meters to over 3 meters in a matter of seconds, as if it had been inflated. It grew inexorably. Christina did not stay idle either. She also extended her right hand. I'm sorry, that move was not my full strength either, Kingdom of the Sword. Christina was obscured by an illusory image of the kingdom that appeared behind her as she spoke. A change in expression came over Winter Nation's princess as soon as that shadow appeared. She had been silent and serene before that. Douglas, who had been standing by her side, cried out in surprise. An ice bow condensed in his hand. Harold, be careful. He drew the bow and knocked the arrow. 3 divine arrows made of mysterious ice spontaneously appeared in the ice bow. Douglas was about to shoot at Christina's head when a tender hand pressed on the arrows. It's not appropriate for you to launch a sneak attack while others are fighting, isn't it? Crack. The tender hand exerted a little strength and crushed the 3 ice arrows, surprising Douglas. He turned his head and saw a youth in a white robe standing in front of him. The child carried a white longsword that emanated the aura of time on his back. It reflected the youth's handsome face, making it look tender and mature at times. He crushed my ice god arrow. Those long arrows are made of ice elemental combat aura and the unique platinum tier frozen sky ice bow. Their hardness is comparable to platinum tier metal. And when did he appear by my side? While Douglas was muttering to himself, the battle between Christina and Harold was about to break out. The people in the immediate vicinity hastened their retreat. One man's dignified voice could be heard over the din of approaching carnage. The time I promised for the match has not yet come, yet you guys are already fighting. It seems that you guys are really looking forward to the match. You guys can't wait any longer. I feel very happy to see that. However, I think it's better to save that energy for the match. It was King Landhar III. The civil and military ministers stood behind him. Not only was Hone present, but so were Antonio and Reed as well. Watson had been alone with Christina because his 2 masters were called to the palace earlier to study the specific rules of the match with the king and the ministers, which was why he was not with them in the courtyard. Looks like your life is safe, Lady Swordmistress. Pray that you won't see me during the match, or I will let you die a horrible death. Seeing King Landhar III's arrival, knowing that they could not fight, Harold curled his lips, and his body shrank rapidly, returning to his normal size. I'll return those words to you intact. Christina replied indifferently and turned to the king and the others. Greetings, Your Majesty. Watson, who was right behind Christina and in front of His Majesty and the others, noticed the ministers. There was an elderly gentleman with white hair and a beard alongside Hone. He had a sage expression on his face. It was Makrotov, he should be the head of the civil officials. Other than those two people, Watson also saw many noblemen from the three archdukes' families in the crowd, including McGee, Newman, and Freya, whom he had seen in the Campbell family. Other than that, there were also many high-tier noblemen. Of course, those people did not attract Watson's attention. What really attracted him were four young men and women in royal attire. The young woman was Kiana, whom Watson had met before. According to Watson's guess, the three young men should be the princes. The eldest prince looked quite mature and had a handlebar mustache. He was about 30 years old, while the second prince was about 20 years old. He was a tall, thin man with a handsome face. He was somewhat similar to King Landhar III. As for the third prince, he was even younger. He was fat and had a round face with a charming smile on it. The three princes each had their own characteristics. If there was anything similar between them, it was that they resembled King Landhar III. As if sensing Watson's gaze, the three princes turned their heads. The eldest prince nodded at Watson. The second prince's gaze flashed, and he waved his hand. The smile on the third prince's face grew even wider. "Greetings, Your Majesty, the High Highnesses, the three princes, and Her Highness, the princess." After greeting the three princes, Watson realized that the three men had retracted their gazes. Only Kiana turned her head at that moment. Her gaze had been locked onto him, never leaving him. "That princess is looking at me again. She can't be interested in me, right?" Watson thought. "Let's go. There's still some time before the competition officially begins. I want to use that time to talk about something." King Landhar III smiled at Watson and looked at him alone. Then, he led the ministers behind him into the Royal Academy. The Academy had already prepared a huge spectator stand that could hold hundreds of thousands of people. Those spectator stands were very similar to the stadium in Watson's previous life. They were created by the Royal Academy using Earth elemental magic overnight. The arena, which was several meters high and covered an area of nearly 1,000 square meters, was located under the massive spectator stand. One or two private rooms could be found scattered around the arena. That was the king's and noblemen's viewing area, prepared exclusively for them. They knew they would be able to see all of the action from the beginning to the end of the competition, so there were no surprises. After King Landhar III entered the Royal Academy, the principal, Brand, immediately came out with a group of teachers to welcome him. Brand, who was in his 70s, had already served as the principal for many years. He was a kind-looking, thin and small old man. Brand immediately led the teachers to kneel in front of the king. "Your Majesty, thank you for your contribution to the Royal Academy. You have so many matters to attend to, and yet you are still overseeing the match. I feel extremely honored." To respond to His Majesty's call, the Royal Academy has also decided to award the winner of that competition. The reward is the key to the Royal Academy's library. Nearly all of the kingdom's original and photocopied books were housed in the Royal Academy's library. It was as if it held all of the kingdom's accumulated knowledge over the years, some of it top secret. Students at the Royal Academy were required to pay dues to borrow certain books. The fact that they had the library's key proved that they could access the collection at any time and read whatever they wanted. As a result, one could say that it is a very commendable reward. Even the king was surprised at Brand's generosity. "I remember that there are only two keys to the library. One is with you, and the other is with the librarian. They rotate at all times. Because of the special nature of the library, the keys can't be duplicated. I am very pleased that you are willing to give the key to the library as a reward. Your Majesty, you flatter me." Then, Brand led the teachers to the audience seats. There were also many older students. They gathered in groups of 2 or 3 and discussed fervently. This year's new students will not only receive His Majesty's attention and participate in His Majesty's competition, but they will also receive generous prizes. "I really regret being born so early. If I had been born a few years later, I might have been able to make it to this grand event." The male student lamented to his female companion beside him. The female companion merely curled her lips. "Stop it. This year's new students do receive a lot of preferential treatment, but the competition is also very fierce. The Royal Academy has always implemented a ruthless elimination system. If you don't have the strength to be here, then you are nothing." Because of His Majesty's policy, The number of new students this year is more than 10 times that of the past, more than the number of people in the other academic years combined. Furthermore, the proportion of geniuses among them is especially high. If we compete with those monsters, we will only become cannon fodder. That makes sense. A large crowd gathered around the academy's entrance as students chatted loudly. Seats were assigned to nobles, contestants' families, and commoners based on their social status. While that was going on, the academy's host guided Watson and the other contestants into the academy. There appeared to be tens of thousands of attendees at first glance. We have 30,000 people who have successfully signed up for the Royal Academy this year. It is possible that the number is not clear to you. To put it another way, the Royal Academy used to admit only 3,000 people per year. The number has grown tenfold since then. The Holy Dragon Kingdom is growing rapidly, as evidenced by this. And among them are some geniuses I have never heard of before. I promised you something, and now I am going to keep it. However brilliant you may be, regardless of your origin, I will not treat you unfairly as long as you can win. King Landhar III's voice echoed through the clouds. His voice and image were projected in the air by magic. Antonio was the one who performed the spell. Later, Antonio would use the same spell to make the battle at the location visible to anyone who happened to be nearby. The words of King Landhar III resounded throughout the land. Many people were enthused after just listening to it. Furthermore, he did not say much. After a few minutes of conversation, King Landhar III changed the subject. When I first arrived, there was a fight outside. That enlightened me to the fact that everyone is in a good mood right now. Consequently, it is unnecessary to engage in such nonsense. I will just lay out the foundation for the match by introducing the rules. There are 3 rounds in the match. This is a group selection round for the first part of the competition. As long as you remain standing on the stage for the specified amount of time, you will win no matter what strategy you use. First round winners will advance to the elimination round, which will last an hour. The final round will feature 16 top finishers. Any questions? King Landhar III inquired of the people in attendance. No one had any questions. Their fists clenched in anticipation, and they exuded excitement as they walked by. The first event is a team battle? That is something I never expected. That makes sense. Thousands of new students enroll each year, after all. It may take a long time if they are all too much to handle at once. For a contestant like me, team battles are a strong suit. Later, I will do everything in my power to get rid of as many individuals as I can. Even though the final field is limited to 16 contestants, I did not say there could not be anyone else in it. Harold licked his lips, and his eyes erupted in a dazzling flash of light. He had an unintentional glance at Christina, who was standing nearby and paying close attention to King Landhar III's speech. Many people shared Harold's views, and as a result, many people assessed one another to see who they could partner with and who they would oppose. Let us get this party started, shall we? I, Antonio, and Reed will serve as the competition's referees. You have the option to give up during the competition by raising your hands. After the enemy has surrendered, you are prohibited from doing any more damage. If you don't, the other officials and I will take action against you. Okay, I am pleased to announce that the competition has officially begun with the first round. Only an hour remains until the contest is over. All of you should make a move. Whoosh! A large number of contestants rushed onto the stage as soon as King Landhar's voice faded. Some people remained motionless, their gaze fixed on the action taking place in front of them. Augustus did not budge from his position. What a bunch of idiots, he said as he cast a cold eye on the audience. At that point, they had actually jumped onto the stage. The king stated that those who were still on the stage an hour later would be allowed to continue. There was no requirement that they had to stand on the stage for an hour. They could, in other words, remain on stage until the very end of the game. They would be treated as targets if they went up earlier. Intelligence was also a part of one's strength. If they only had brute force but no tactics, then they were dumb. He did not go up earlier. On the one hand, he was afraid of wasting his strength. On the other hand, he was worried that his trump card would be discovered. His transformed body was his secret weapon, specially used to deal with Watson. Watson, you will be finished very soon. My current strength is unprecedentedly strong. Grandfather said that the transformation was very successful, even more successful than he had imagined. He even said that I am the Campbell family's greatest masterpiece in 100 years, and that it would be tough for anyone to surpass me in the future. Grandfather wouldn't lie to me, so I don't even know how strong I am now. Augustus turned his gaze to the other side. Watson, who was also standing below the stage, smiled. At Watson's location. Watson, when should we go up? We should wait until the last few minutes. Christina looked at the thousands of people who had already engaged in a scuffle on stage. Tina, most of the people think so too. Therefore, the competition will be more intense during the last period. Furthermore, if we go up now, we might not be treated as a target. Therefore, let's go up later. Watson shook his head and put forward a different opinion. Watson, since you think so, then I'll listen to you. Your judgment shouldn't be wrong. Christina thought for a moment and agreed. After all, after receiving Watson's gift, her strength had improved by leaps and bounds to an astonishing level. She could withstand an hour in the arena by herself, let alone Watson. Even if the people in the arena attacked them together, they would not need to be afraid. What Christina could not figure out was whether or not it was okay to go up at this time, based on what Watson had said. There was absolutely no reason to hold out. Watson, on the other hand, advised her to be patient. What on earth was he expecting? Black, young Master Watson, I'm here. Someone called out, and an unidentified youth in a school uniform came up to Watson and bowed deeply in his direction. It was raining, and his gray hair had fallen out of his face, covering his bloodshot eyes. Eamon, you're here. Watson smiled at the youth in front of him. That was the person he was waiting for. He had allowed Eamon to enter the academy and become his companion. Therefore, he had issued an order to Eamon to stay with him before the competition. Watson, who is this? Christina looked at Eamon curiously. She realized that she had never seen that youngster before, and she had followed Watson whenever he went out. Where did that young person come from? Whose son was? Tina, I forgot to introduce him to you. Eamon is a friend I met in the city. He isn't from a noble family, so it's normal that you don't know him. Watson explained casually, and Eamon bowed to Christina. It is just as young Master Watson said, Lady Swordmistress. Christina did not doubt that explanation. She suppressed the doubt in her heart. At that moment, another voice sounded beside Watson. Watson, so you're here. I've finally found you. A young girl had called out to them. Then, Charlotte and Lily appeared in front of Watson. The two girls looked like they had used up a lot of energy to squeeze through the tens of thousands of participants. Miss Charlotte, Miss Lily, why are you here? Christina asked in surprise. As a member of the Sword Saint family, she had seen those two girls when she attended any of the social balls. She knew that they were members of the Archduke's families, but she did not expect Watson to hook up with them in just a few days. We're here to join Watson. Since it's a team battle, the strength of a single person is not enough for a team. Anyway, as long as we can stand at the end of the ring, it's enough. It's very difficult for me and Charlotte to accomplish that with our strength. However, with Watson and Lady Swordmistress, it will be different. Lily stopped in front of Watson. She patted her chest and said proudly. No one knew why she felt proud about that. Yes, Watson, we want to ask you for a favor. Since we have eaten together, you should be able to help us, right? Of course, we won't let you help us for free. If we can enter the third round, we will give you compensation. Charlotte's eyes flickered as she asked. About this, Watson, please take me and my sister, Lana, with you. As your sidekick, if I'm eliminated in the first round, and others find out about it, they'll think that you don't have the ability to protect your subordinates. Won't you lose their respect as well? Behind Charlotte, Casey and Lana, who were holding platinum-tier longswords, also walked toward them. Casey's expression was one of flattery. Christina was extremely surprised. Even Casey from the Ptolemy family is here. Watson is surrounded by the children from the three Archdukes' families. How did he do it? When did Watson hook up with so many noblemen? Christina had thought that she was the only nobleman Watson knew. She was proud of it and felt that she could extract more benefits from Watson. Then, she felt conflicted. In just an instant, 5 people appeared beside Watson. From a small group of 2 people, it had become a team of 7 people. Other than Casey, I'm considered friends with everyone. Since you want me to protect you, I can't refuse. I'll enter the arena. You just have to keep about 10 meters from me. Watson, what do you mean? What do you mean by being friends with others? Am I not worthy of being your friend? Casey asked. Aren't you a sidekick? Watson glanced at Casey. Casey immediately stopped muttering and did not speak. Watson saw Casey as a B***starred who harmed women. He would never be friends with such a person. The reason he did not kill Casey was that he was afraid of angering the Ptolemy family. That did not mean that he had a good impression of Casey. Oh, right. After speaking to Casey, Watson suddenly thought of something and turned to look at Charlotte. Miss Charlotte, aren't you a member of the Saint Laurent family? Your family should have a genius named Nia. You chose me instead of her. Why is that? Casey and Lana came to Watson for help. He knew that the Ptolemy family did not have any particularly powerful geniuses, including Lily. After all, he had defeated Augustus, so he was obviously not his match. Charlotte had told him about Nia 2 days before the competition. She also told him to surrender if he were to lose the battle. Otherwise, his life would be in danger. It meant that Charlotte had a lot of faith in Nia's strength. Sister Nia doesn't need my help. She can do that trial by herself. If you don't believe me, you can take a look. Charlotte's expression was a little awkward. She raised her hand and pointed to a corner of the stage. Charlotte had pointed out a spot on the stage where Nia should be standing, and she was there. That statement was wildly inaccurate. Nia was perched atop a massive icicle. The icicle towered over everyone at the height of 10 meters. It was huge, like a tall tower. It was not just ice that made up the icicle's structure. Some attendees were unable to make it out in time. Frightened expressions were on their faces as they froze in the icicle. It was estimated that there were over 100 of them. The people in the vicinity of Nia were shaken by what they witnessed. They all fled the range of the icicle and went to fight in other locations. More than 100 people were frozen in an instant. Well, to pass the Royal Academy's test, even if those people aren't gold tier, they are still as strong as a gold tier elite. It is as expected of someone who passed with full marks. What a monster. When Lily looked at the scene on the stage, she could not help but exclaim in surprise. Watson, now you know why I'm not with Sister Nia. Charlotte sighed. If she were to go on the stage, she might also be frozen into an ice sculpture. However, as long as she remained on the stage, she would be considered to have passed the test. Unfortunately, she did not want to use that method to pass the test. That Nia is a powerful opponent. Watson narrowed his eyes as he looked at the girl on the stage. She had a scroll in her hands and wore a purple gown. She looked like a blooming iris flower. He felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity with Nia. It reminded him of the time he faced the gods in the palace 2 days ago. However, that feeling flashed through his mind, making him suspect that he was wrong. Forget it, it's useless to think about that now. Let's go on stage. After retracting his thoughts, Watson began to lead everyone to the stage. At the same time, he gave Eamon a look, who immediately understood and began to look around him. Watson entered the competition to avoid the intense finals, but he also wanted to bring Eamon along to find and protect some suitable talents from elimination. He aspired to recruit these individuals into his organization. Nia chose to guard the eastern corner of the stage, while Watson chose the western side opposite her. As soon as he entered the stage, 2 short competitors were holding daggers in front of him. They were fighting with each other as they approached him. Those 2 contestants possessed gold-tier strength. Sparks flew when the blades collided, and their combat aura shook the ground. If you don't want to be eliminated, move aside. Watson's team included 7 people, so the person behind him became nervous while the person in front of him displayed an ecstatic expression. His body had split into 3 shadows when he teleported short distances using short-range teleportation. The other contestant was forced to move even closer to Watson and the others even faster because they attacked in different directions. Watson extended his right hand and pressed it against the longsword on his back. Just as he was about to move, Casey suddenly rushed out and brandished the water dragon sky sword in his hand. I didn't expect that someone would deliver their head as soon as I arrived in the arena. Watson, don't make a move. Let me deal with those 2 fellows. He activated a platinum-tier battle technique, the sky connecting waterspout. The sky darkened instantly as the sword emitted a dense blue light. The sky was clouded with black rain. Suddenly, drizzling rain fell from the sky, and as it condensed into a waterspout, it swept the retreating contestants and the chasing contestants into the raging torrential downpour. The platinum tier waterspout swept away not only them but all the other teams nearby as well. They could not even scream in the waterspout. More than 50 contestants were sucked into the waterspout with a single slash. The waterspout carried those people from the arena, where they fell heavily to the ground. They had white foam coming from their mouths and whirlpool-shaped eyes. They had failed. What happened? Why is that young master so strong? Even though everyone else was retreating, Casey could not help but raise the water dragon sky sword even higher in a coquettish stance. When he lived in the floating city, people had dubbed him the useless young master. However, in the Royal Academy full of geniuses, he could still make a name for himself. All of that was made possible by his exceptional talent. That's a platinum tier weapon? DMN it. When I saw that person was the legendary useless young master Casey, I thought I'd be able to eliminate him easily. I did not expect him to have a platinum tier weapon. It is as one expected, even if he's a piece of trash, as long as he has a platinum tier weapon, it's not something an ordinary gold tier elite can contend against. Let's not go over there. Let's find another target. The surrounding voices were not full of praises like Casey had imagined. Instead, they were full of sarcasm. Those words made Casey's face turn red, and he roared angrily, "You be **stards. Who are you calling trash? Look at me, I'm going to eliminate all of you." He brandished the water dragon sky sword and was about to rush forward. However, before he could take action, Watson squeezed his shoulder. "Young Master Casey, are you sure you want to go out? We currently occupy a corner of the western arena. As long as no one attacks us, we don't need to take the initiative to attack others. If you go out and leave me by more than 10 meters, I won't be able to help you." Gulp. Hearing that, Casey looked forward and saw that there were at least hundreds of people staring at him. He swallowed his saliva. "You guys are lucky that I'm a kind person. I won't argue with you. However, if you don't appreciate my kindness and dare to attack me, don't blame me for being rude." Quote, that kind of hypocritical speech makes other people, such as Charlotte, look at Casey with an odd expression. Fortunately, although Casey's actions were funny, the power he displayed also made other ordinary people dare not approach him. Unfortunately, that beautiful scene changed with time. After staying in the western corner of the ring for about 20 minutes, a familiar strong enemy appeared before Watson and the others. "Isn't that the lady swordmistress who fought me outside? I did not expect that you would choose to enter the ring at this time. I had wanted to wait until you guys entered the finals before fighting with you, but I really can't wait any longer. Right here, right now, let's finish the battle with me." The person who jumped up was none other than Harold. The young face hidden under the beard was full of fanaticism. As he spoke, Harold casually waved his fists, and the fierce wind from his fists knocked the contestants out of the ring one by one. In just a moment, there was no one else within 10 meters of him, and he looked at Christina with interest. Chapter 420. End of first round. "Harold, you idiot, didn't we agree to go up in the last 10 minutes? Why are you going up there now? What if you get eliminated?" Below the stage, Douglas, one of the 3 members from the Winter Nation, complained unhappily when Harold went up the stage. Douglas and the princess did not follow suit. They just stood near Harold and watched. "Douglas, you don't have to be so nervous. What's the big deal? Anyway, if you come in early, more people will be eliminated. Besides, didn't you say that it's better to go up early than later? Because you can show your strength and intimidate the contestants from the beginning. That will make them feel like we are invincible and attack the remaining contestants. On the contrary, it's unlikely that they will touch us. We're going up later to keep our strength hidden." Harold's explanation made Douglas palm his forehead subconsciously. "Harold, you really surprised me. Why did you explain our strategy in front of the enemy? Calling you an idiot is too good for you." "I'm sorry, Douglas. Anyway, those are all unimportant. I think it's okay to tell them. Furthermore, judging from their intention, it's obviously the same as us. It doesn't matter whether we tell them not. Right now, the most important thing for me is to end the battle. Other things aren't worth mentioning at all. Do you guys want to come up one by one or together?" After a few perfunctory explanations, the light in Harold's eyes grew more assertive. He beckoned at Watson and the others. "Who are you? How can you be so arrogant? You even want us to go up together. Do you have the skills? I don't need anyone else. I can settle you by myself." Casey and Lana arrived late, so they did not see the battle between Christina and Harold. Therefore, Casey did not think that the man in front of him was powerful. He held the water dragon sky sword and swaggered forward. Platinum tier sword technique, sky connecting waterspout. The water tornado that had just dissipated condensed once more after Casey's words, and it sped up its approach toward Harold. Under the dark clouds, a few bursts of lightning could be seen. Those who came into contact with the water droplets from the water tornado had holes in their bodies, and everyone else fled in all directions. However, Harold, who was at the center of the attack, appeared to be very calm. He did not escape from the oncoming waterspout, and he extended his right hand that expanded like an inflatable balloon amidst a series of cracking sounds. Soon, its size increased by several times. At the same time, a layer of solid ice appeared on its enlarged arm. Harold stuck his arm into the waterspout, which then was spinning rapidly before it stopped. A layer of solid ice condensed along with the water molecules. Soon, the waterspout stopped spinning and turned into a huge rotating icicle. Then, Harold pulled his thick arm out of the rotating icicle. Boom! The icicle that connected the sky and the earth turned into ice shards and snowflakes. What is that? Casey, who was holding his platinum tier weapon high up in the air, was ready to welcome the victory. When he saw that scene, he opened his mouth and fell into a daze. The snowflakes that fell on his body made him subconsciously alert. It froze his platinum tier attack. That power was too terrifying. Are you stunned? You people are so short-sighted. The Winter Nation has powerful magical beasts and even more ancient existences, such as the snow giants. As the descendants of the once extinct frost giants, the snow giants are not as powerful as the frost giants, but they also have extraordinary strength. And I am a snow giant with ice blood flowing in my veins. Furthermore, the purity of the giant bloodline in my blood is not weaker than that of an ordinary frost giant. The specific manifestation is that I was born with platinum tier strength. Born with platinum tier strength? Is there such a genius in the world? Even Watson was shocked. He had trained for a long time to become platinum tier. He did not expect that Harold would be born with such strength. Humans were incomparable, indeed. The Winter Nation had sent a monster to them. Young Master Watson, that guy is from the Snow Giant's bloodline. With your help, he might be able to awaken the bloodline of the real Frost Giant. After the Elemental Giant is extinct, even their remains will be worth a lot. That guy is a good specimen. Do you want me to capture him and bring him back to the Severed Fingers gang? Eamon lowered his voice and whispered into Watson's ear. His goal was to help Watson find suitable talents and win them over to fight against the king. Since the person in front of him was from the Winter Nation and was naturally hostile toward the Holy Dragon Kingdom, he was a good target. There's no need for that. He attacked Tina. Now he's my enemy and needs to be dealt with. Watson shook his head. While Watson was talking to Eamon, Douglas pushed up his monocle and said, "Harold, can you stop telling your enemies about your abilities? Now that your enemies know about your abilities, how are you going to ambush them?" Douglas despised swine-like teammates who were constantly bragging to their foes about their special abilities. He would have gone up onto the stage and dragged Harold down if the princess had not yet given the order. "Douglas, you're too nosy. Even if I tell those people about my ability, they can't do anything to me. My snow giant's ability far surpasses that of a human. What can they do to me? They can only watch as I defeat them." Harold spoke in a muffled voice. Every part of his body suddenly swelled. The black hair on his body grew and turned from black to white in a short period. He had transformed from a human into a giant more than 10 meters tall and covered in long white hair. The people from the Winter Nation have giant blood in them? Run, quickly. When one of the contestants caught a glimpse of Harold as a giant, the giant's shadow fell on him. In shock, he let out a shrill scream and dashed back to safety. How do I defeat such a monster? I give up. Harold's terrifying appearance terrified most of the people there. They were tempted to surrender by spreading their arms wide. To their surprise, Harold had already spread out his massive feet, which measured several meters in circumference, before they could even raise their hands. He stomped on the contestants who were ready to surrender. A few that could not get away in time were squashed into a pool of blood, even though the attack did not use any combat aura or combat skills to do so. Roar! After completing all of that, Harold stooped to his knees and grabbed the arena floor with both of his hands. Since there were many battles between those geniuses, the arena was reinforced to withstand attacks, at least at the platinum tier. However, Harold had lifted the rocks out of the ground. He hurled 2 massive boulders, each measuring several meters in height, with the force of a mountain. As a result, those in the path of the 2 massive rocks were broken apart and sent flying out of the arena. The weaker ones were trampled, and their bodies littered the ground. The entire arena was reduced to 2 long, empty halls as a result of the operation. Except for the bits of meat and the spilled blood, the voids were empty. That scene was too shocking. The other contestants even stopped fighting. The entire arena was silent. From now on, this arena will belong to me. If you don't want to die, then get lost. Only those who can fight me can stay here. Harold's snow giant spoke in a low and muffled voice. His voice was like thunder. When the other contestants heard that, many of them revealed indignant expressions, but they had no way to refute him. They were like weaklings who were not worth mentioning. Harold, that's enough. Don't attack the other contestants. I'll be your opponent. Christina could not stand Harold's arrogance. She stood up and stretched her right hand into a battle stance. You finally can't stand it anymore? I'll finish you off first and then crush those small fries around me. Harold opened his fanged mouth and let out an ear-piercing laugh. He ran toward Christina on 4 limbs. The strength of his running was enough to shake the earth. Furthermore, Harold's finger was thicker than Christina's. 2 were enough to pinch an ordinary human. Everyone thought Christina had a small chance of winning. Watson, aren't you going to help? Would it be dangerous to let Miss Christina fight against such a monster alone? After all, there's a difference even if they're both platinum tier. A platinum tier giant is obviously much stronger than an ordinary human, Charlotte asked hesitantly. However, Watson remained calm. He did not move. There's no need. We'll just wait here. Tina is skilled enough to get rid of that big fool. Instead of worrying, you should rest and prepare for the upcoming competition. With me here, you don't have to worry. If you're tired, you can just lie here and sleep. Lie here and sleep? Charlotte repeated with a strange expression on her face. The people nearby also showed disapproval after hearing Watson's words. No matter how strong Watson was, he would not be able to protect all of them, right? After all, sleeping in a place like that was equivalent to courting death. If you guys don't want to rest, then I'll rest on my own. Watson had no intention of defending himself after seeing that Charlotte and the others did not believe him. He did not do anything but sit cross-legged on the ground, his face blank. His attention was drawn to the nearby conflict between Christina and Harold. They had already collided at that point. Christina did not have a longsword, but she was dripping with energy with every move she made. Harold had a great deal of power as well. Every move he made had the potential to shake the ground beneath his feet. In addition, Harold's body was constantly enveloped in a layer of ice-cold air as he attacked. Christina's frequent exchanges with him had left the ground and her armor wholly covered in ice. As a result, her movements became increasingly challenging. The Sword Saint's platinum tier daughter. You have let me down so badly. Is this the extent of your abilities? Every time he punched the ground, one could see the imprint there. The shattered ground froze in midair before they turned to stones and were blasted away. You are powerful. I have to admit that I can't do anything to you in a short period. It seems that I can only use this move. Christina backed 10 meters away while she said that. Harold's attack and defense were comparable to diamond tier, which caused her to understand that Harold's strength was probably at peak platinum tier. Even if Christina could use her diamond tier sword technique to subdue Harold, it would have been difficult to inflict physical harm on him. Oh, are you still hiding some kind of powerful move? Hurry up and use it, or you won't have a chance. As you wish. Christina was unmoved by Harold's words. She just closed her eyes, raised her hands above her head, and took a step backward with her right calf. Her entire body seemed to have turned into a sharp sword. Before she could move, a sharp sword aura had already shot straight into the sky. The thick dark clouds that had appeared earlier because of Casey's platinum tier fighting technique, the sky-connecting waterspout, had been pierced through them. A warm ray of sunlight sprinkled on the ground. It shone on Christina's body, causing her armor to emit a psychedelic luster. Following that, an illusory kingdom appeared. With Christina as the core, Harold was trapped within it. Harold's expression drastically changed when he realized what was going on around Christina. When Christina confronted him before the competition, he knew exactly what move she intended to use. Douglas's interruption prevented Christina from unleashing it fully, and as a result, Harold was under the impression that the pressure on him had increased when that move was actually used. I can't let her unleash that move, or else I'll lose. With that thought in his heart, Harold's thick arms clenched into fists and fell toward the ground. Peak Platinum Tier Fighting Technique, Avalanche of 1,000 Mountains. Numerous snow mountains appeared in front of Harold. Each one was taller than the other. The snow swirled in all directions, along with the strong wind. The endless snowflakes seemed to fill up the entire arena and covered the snow mountains. Countless participants flew out of the arena and were covered by the snowflakes. There were even more people submerged under the snow. After that move appeared, the noblemen in the surrounding stands held their breaths. King Landhar III, Antonio, Reed, and the two envoys from the Winter Nation sat in the luxurious spectator box. I did not expect such powerful talent from the Winter Nation. They seemed to be already at peak platinum tier at such young ages. Their future achievements should be limitless. King Landhar III looked down at the battle through the huge window. He was swirling a glass of scarlet wine brewed from the sunfruit. Upon hearing his words, the two envoys from the Kingdom of Winter could not help but look pleased. Your Majesty, you flatter us. Among these three talents, Harold is not the strongest. The other two geniuses, Princess Ashe and Douglas, are stronger than Harold when they want to be. It's just that we did not expect that your kingdom's Lady Swordmistress would be able to fight Harold to a draw. As soon as the two envoys finished speaking, a cold snort came from the side. The person who made the sound was Reed. Naturally, Reed did not feel good when someone belittled his daughter. What do you mean by fighting Harold to a draw? Can't you see that Tina is about to win? I'm sorry, Master Sword Saint. We do not see it at all. The two envoys were intimidated by Reed's powerful aura, and their breathing stopped. Then, they realized that they had lost their composure, so they took the opportunity to look outside. It seems like the weather in the Winter Nation is not too good, which has caused the two envoys' eyes to be less than perfect. After the competition is over, I will definitely treat the two of you with the best healers in our kingdom. Master Reed, there is no point in trying to convince us. A win is a win, and a loss is a loss. Besides, Harold is 14 years old this year, and Lady Swordmistress is already 20 years old. Even if Harold loses, it is expected. If Harold is the same age as Lady Swordmistress, then Lady Swordmistress will definitely lose. What did you say? King Landhar III, sensing tensions rising between Reed and the two envoys, put down his wine cup and said, "All right, do not quarrel. Instead of arguing about it, how about we make a bet on who will win that battle, and I will be the judge? Since His Majesty has said so, it seems inappropriate for us not to participate. We bet that Harold would win, and we bet 1,000 gold coins." The two envoys looked at each other. Only 1,000 gold coins? You people from the Winter Nation are so stingy. Or do you have no confidence in your own elites? Reed sneered. Then, the two envoys asked, Master Sword Saint, so you are prepared to bet more? I wonder how much you are betting. I shall bet 1,000,000 gold coins that Tina will win. What? The two envoys were shocked. They did not expect Reed to bet so much. They did not know if Reed was really that confident or rich and generous and did not care about such a small amount of money. Since Reed has offered 1,000,000 gold coins, then I must do something as well. I also bet that Christina will win. And I also bet 1,000,000 gold coins. Antonio, who had not spoken since the beginning, suddenly interrupted with a smile on his face. I can even bet on the final winner. You will never think of this person. And I can bet 100,000,000 gold coins on that. Antonio, the first round is not over yet. It's too early to tell. You can only bet between Christina and Harold for this round. All right, Your Majesty. I've spoken too much. Antonio smiled and did not say anything after being reprimanded by King Landhar III. He understood that the king did not want him to leak too much information, but he did not care. He had decided that the winner of that competition would be Watson. There was no one more monstrous than that youth. When Christina and Harold were fighting, Watson sat cross-legged on the spot and began to doze off, making Antonio feel angry and amused. The only one who could show such laziness in the battle was Watson, and the two envoys from the Winter Nation would never have thought that such a youth would be the favorite to win. King Landhar III turned to look at the two envoys. Gentlemen, each of us has bet 1,000,000 gold coins, but you only bid 1,000 gold coins. Isn't that a little inappropriate? Quote, Your Majesty, we only have a few thousand gold coins on us. We can't even make a bigger bet. It doesn't matter. We can lend the money to you. As long as you win, you can return it to me. Anyway, it's only 1,000,000 gold coins. It should not be a big amount for you or the Winter Nation, right? How was that not a significant amount? The two envoys complained in their hearts. 1,000,000 gold coins could do a lot of things in the Winter Nation. A large family's annual liquidity was only around 10,000,000 gold coins. It might not be enough. That was the disadvantage of living in a cold environment. Due to the lack of resources and the exhaustion they had to endure to get through the cold every year, the residents did not get to enjoy any special entertainment programs. Their purchasing power was also inferior. Their economy was far less developed than that of the Holy Dragon Kingdom. However, since King Landhar III had said so, the two envoys could not lower their rank. It seemed like the Winter Nation was not as good as the Holy Dragon Kingdom. They immediately nodded. In that case, we thank you, Your Majesty. 1,000,000 gold coins bet then. That money is just a drop in the ocean for the Winter Nation. We'll accept that bet. In any case, as long as they won the bet, they would not have to pay it. On the contrary, they could earn quite a lot. So, why not? In a happy mood, the two envoys looked through the huge window. At that moment, the battle between Harold and Christina was almost at the end. Platinum tier fighting technique, avalanche of 1,000 mountains. As they watched the massive snow mountains appear and spread outward, engulfing the competitors one by one, both envoys could not help but smile. They knew Harold's strengths and weaknesses. He was the weakest link in the trio. The other two elites were much stronger. Harold was more powerful in terms of strength and maneuverability. It seems like you will have to spend a lot of money, Your Majesty. Unable to hold it in, the envoy displayed the posture of a victor. With such a powerful move like the avalanche of 1,000 mountains, not many people in the Winter Nation could withstand it, let alone Christina, who had already been swallowed by the snowflakes. It seemed like she had already suffered a crushing defeat. It's too early to make a conclusion. Let's continue watching. King Landhar III shook his head. His indifferent reaction made the two envoys somewhat puzzled. How would Christina turn the tables? Just as they were feeling puzzled, suddenly, a dazzling seven-colored greatsword pierced through layers of snowfog in the icebergs that filled the sky. It transformed into the kingdom of the sword that shot straight into the clouds and emitted a brilliant light. The kingdom of the sword was illusory and seemed to be unstable. However, the power it contained was supreme. Just by looking at it, one could feel the radiance of divinity. Many participants could not help but kneel on the ground with trembling legs in front of it. In an instant, a large number of people knelt on the stage. Even a few elites who were unmoved, such as Nia, who had occupied the eastern corner from the start, could not help but look at the greatsword with a solemn expression. Slash! Accompanied by a soft shout, the kingdom of the sword slashed downward. It was as if a divine kingdom had fallen. The hundreds of icebergs that Harold had summoned instantly shattered. Without even releasing ice shards, they were vaporized into mist, revealing the entire stage. Crack! The arena, with Harold as the center, split into two halves. The middle of the arena was blocked by a crack that was several meters wide. Harold stared at his chest in a daze. His skin was dyed red with blood. A large wound ran across his chest. What's that move called? That is a Starlight tier sword technique, and its name is the Kingdom of the Sword. A Starlight tier sword technique? Harold's eyes widened, and then he smiled bitterly in relief. I see, I did not lose unjustly. As soon as his voice fell, his huge body collapsed. The long white fur on his body gradually turned black, and his huge body began to shrink. Before he fell into the crack, a black shadow flashed under it. It was Douglas. He held Harold in his arms. Harold, that's why I told you not to leak any information to the enemy so easily. Otherwise, you would not be so miserable. Princess Ash, what should we do now? We've disrupted the plan. Should we avenge Harold? Douglas turned his head and asked Ash, who had also followed him to the stage. Even though he saw Christina perform the shocking Starlight tier sword technique, he did not feel afraid. On the contrary, the eyes hidden behind the lenses were filled with killing intent. Do it. No, forget it. Let's find a place to treat Harold for the time being. Quote, when Ash saw the big bloody hole in Harold's chest, a hint of anger flashed in her eyes. She wanted to make a move, but at that moment, Watson, who was behind Christina, suddenly woke up. He stretched his body and said, "It's over so quickly. It's faster than I thought." Then, he met Ash's eyes. The moment she met Watson's eyes, Ash's body trembled violently. She swallowed the words forcefully and stomped her foot. Standing on the collapsed arena floor, Ash and Douglas, who was still carrying Harold, looked around coldly. That scene stopped the contestants who were prepared to ambush Harold. Everyone on the stage was at least platinum tier. Other than Christina, who had just broken the arena with her sword, the rest could not do anything similar. Only Ash could shatter the arena with a single move. A person with that kind of strength was not something they could afford to provoke. However, Ash's actions reminded them that they could destroy the stage. He only required them to be still standing at the end of the competition. He did not say they had to be on the same stage. Princess Ash, you clearly wanted me to make a move just now. Why did you immediately change your words? Furthermore, you made us stay so far away from the main stage. We can't avenge Harold or kill any of the geniuses from the Holy Dragon Kingdom. Douglas stood in the small arena with a radius of 1 meter. He frowned as he looked at the crowd that was still fighting hundreds of meters away. Just now, I happened to catch a glimpse of someone. It was because of them that I came to such a conclusion. Concentrate your efforts on healing Harold. The Holy Dragon Kingdom has such a powerful person? That's something I didn't expect to find here, Douglas. It looks like we made a blunder with our calculations. My mother's mission, which she assigned to me, is unlikely to be completed. Ash looked worried. Her full name was Ash Winter Gustav, the third daughter of the Winter Nation's Empress. The fact that she appeared on that mission symbolized the importance of the Holy Dragon Kingdom. It also meant that she possessed a special ability, the Eye of the Frozen Mirror. She was born with a special pupil. It was made of pure ice elements rather than flesh and blood. Anyone who possessed that pupil could see through the essence of all the powers in the world. However, it also meant that the person would be colorblind. Everything was a mass of energy. For example, Ash would see Harold as an ice elemental energy mass with the outline of a giant. Even if Harold did not cast his giant transformation, it was still the same. When she looked at Christina's outline, it was a giant sword that shot straight up into the sky. It was very similar to the Kingdom of the Sword that she had seen. Those were not much. The key was that she had accidentally caught a glimpse of Watson's energy outline. Ash shivered as she remembered that. Princess Ash, what exactly did you see? If you were afraid because of that woman, I really don't think it's necessary. Even though she can use the Divine Kingdom, the Empress gave us that artifact before she left. With that artifact, we can easily use the Divine Kingdom's power. We won't be inferior to her. Who said I was talking about the swordswoman? I'm talking about the youth behind her. Ash reached out and pointed in Watson's direction. The young man was sitting cross-legged on the ground and yawning as if he had just woken up from a dream. Douglas's expression became strange. You're afraid of that youth, Princess Ash? Really? He understood Ash's ability to see things that ordinary people could not. That was also her primary purpose for going there. Some geniuses would hide their strength to influence other people's judgment. However, with Ash around, they would not make a mistake in their judgment. Douglas, the young man you are referring to, defeated the Frozen Sky Ice Bow before the competition. I looked at him then, but although it was powerful, it was barely diamond tier. However, his aura changed when I was about to order you to attack him. Ash's pupils turned pure white, reflecting the outline of the energy emitted from Watson's body. The outline was difficult to describe. It did not have a human form, but instead, it was a fountain emitting unknown energy. Two divine kingdoms with entirely different styles, and there were also numerous glorious rules. Human figures were between them. They were not Watson, but they were a part of him. His outline did not have any obvious boundaries, it seemed to occupy everything within sight. Ash had seen through many people since she was young. Among them, there were many powerful magical beasts and elites. However, none of them had an energy outline like Watson's. Princess Ash, I don't understand what you're saying. You said that Harold's energy profile was a snow giant that was more than 10 meters tall, just like what he looked like after he transformed. Tell me, How many heralds are there in Watson's energy profile? Then, I'll be able to gauge his strength. 1,000, no, maybe 10,000 heralds. 10,000 heralds? Are you seeing things? Douglas swallowed his saliva. He had never doubted the princess, but at that moment, he could not help but waver. Harold was as strong as a diamond tier elite, but Watson was equivalent to 10,000 of heralds. How strong was Watson? I'm sure. We should change our plans for the upcoming battle. With that young man, if we go too far, we might end up worse than Harold. As for how strong that young man is, we'll have to wait for the next battle to find out. When Ash and Douglas analyzed Watson's strength, Watson stood up, slapping his hand over his mouth. He glanced at Ash and Douglas in the distance. They even thought of such a method to split up the arena. How clever. It's a pity they didn't give up even after watching their man lose. They were prepared to capture everyone in one fell swoop. After Christina defeated Harold, Ash cast a glance at Watson. He felt a trace of that girl's gaze. It was as if she had been seen through his body, and all his secrets had been exposed. That made him a little nervous. He believed that the girl was not ordinary since she could affect him that much. He wanted to finish her off before she entered the finals. However, he did not expect her to stop attacking after she saw him. Instead, she took the initiative to pull away. That made it difficult for him to make a move. If I make a move now, I can only use a large-scale attack. If that were to happen, I would eliminate most of the people here. I'd better wait for an opportunity to meet her after entering the finals to think of a way to deal with her. Watson made up his mind and waved at Christina. Tina, you came back just in time. I'll have to trouble you to cut off the area that we're in to separate us from the main stage. You're telling me to do things the moment I come back? Watson, I didn't see you helping me when I was fighting a strong enemy just now. Christina panted as she rolled her eyes at Watson. It was obvious that the battle had exhausted her. I believed that you could defeat the opponent, Tina, so I did not interfere. Watson shrugged. Christina rolled her eyes again. Although she was unhappy with Watson's words, she still did as he requested. She stretched her hand outward and separated the west side of the arena. Then, she used her sword aura to push them away from the main stage. When the other elites saw that, they also followed suit. Nia used an ice blade to split the arena that she was in and then used an ice pillar to lift it into the air. Augustus also occupied a spot and released platinum tier flames to fuse the surrounding stages. The fire separated his area from the main stage, making it difficult for others to get close. Aside from them, a few elites had separated the stage from the battle. Faced with such a powerful existence that surpassed platinum tier, the other participants did not dare fight for it. They could only engage in an even more crowded battle in the arena, which had shrunk by nearly a third. An hour quickly passed. The number of participants remaining in the arena had decreased from 30,000 to less than 1,000 people. In the spectator box in the sky, Reed and Antonio held an IOU in their hands, respectively. Their faces were filled with joy, while the Winter Nation's two envoys sat opposite them. They looked as if they had lost their loved ones. They were discouraged. Harold had lost? How did that swordswoman control the Divine Kingdom? They knew that only Starlight tier elites could use the Divine Kingdom's power. Some Diamond tier geniuses might be able to use it too. However, that girl looked like she was only Platinum tier. So, how could she use the Divine Kingdom? It was impossible for her to do that. Did she use a weapon? It did not look like she carried one. Impossible? As my daughter, is it strange for her to control the Divine Kingdom at such a young age? Reed exhaled with a smug look on his face. He had earned 1,000,000 gold coins, an act that smacked the envoys' faces. He was really proud of himself. It was too exhilarating. Reed knew that it was an ability that Watson had given Christina, so he did not doubt it. After all, he had seen with his own eyes that after believing in Watson, even a gold-tier disciple could display strength comparable to a diamond-tier elite, let alone a platinum-tier Christina. He might not believe in his daughter, but he would always believe in Watson. However, there was one thing that Reed did not quite understand. He believed that there was a reason for Christina to win. Why did King Landhar III look as if he was certain that Christina would win? Did he know about Watson's various abilities? Did Watson tell the king that? Puzzled, Reed glanced at King Landhar III and found that he was playing with the wine glass in his hand. The corners of his mouth held an unfathomable smile. Reed did not know what was going through King Landhar III's mind at that moment. What a pity. Initially, I thought that Christina was not a match for the Winter Nation's youth. But if Watson were to make a move, the other youth would definitely lose. I didn't expect Christina to defeat him on her own. That was really beyond my expectations. I knew that Christina had advanced to Platinum tier, but when did she manage to master the Kingdom of the Sword? Did she have some sort of epiphany? No matter what, that is too exaggerated. From Platinum tier epiphany to obtaining Starlight tier abilities, was that something that a human could do? Antonio and Reed bet so confidently on Christina's victory. It seems like they have grasped some things that I don't know, but they aren't willing to tell me about that. They wanted me to also bet on 1,000,000 gold coins. Those two old B** stards. King Landhar III cursed Reed and Antonio for being unreasonable, but he did not say it aloud. Since it was almost time, he stood up, and his voice was transmitted to the entire Royal Academy with magic. Time's up. I declare that the first round of the competition has officially ended. Let me see how many people are left after this. Chapter 421. The Chosen One. After King Landhar III's voice was heard, everyone on stage came to a halt. Non-stage participants appeared agitated, while stage participants like Watson and the others appeared composed. Some people collapsed on the main stage from exhaustion and dehydration as well. Even if there was another battle, it appeared as if they would be unable to continue fighting. As the scene unfolded, King Landhar III remained standing to take it all in. He said, "It appears that everyone is exhausted. Let's take a half-hour break. The second round will begin very soon. It's a round of elimination. After that, the remaining participants will draw lots. The one who draws the first lot will fight the one who draws the second lot. The one who draws the third lot will fight the one who draws the fourth lot, and so on until the 16 winners are decided." King Landhar III explained the rules above while the contestants below complained. "There's only 1 hour left. That's too little time. I wasted most of my energy in the battle, and I also suffered a few serious injuries. It's practically killing me to fight in such a situation. It seems that I'd better forfeit voluntarily." Many people had the same thoughts. The vast majority of their attention was drawn to the main stage. Unlike Watson, who could split the stage with ease, they had to fight to get a chance to stay on stage. The hour-long chaos of combat between various foes had depleted their bodies' reserves of all remaining energy. The experts who had divided the arena were utterly unaffected by what had happened. They already had a huge advantage over those elites, and that advantage had widened. Their chances of winning had shrunk even further. It was as if King Landhar III could hear what those competitors were thinking. He yelled, "Does anyone feel that the 1-hour rest that I have arranged is too short? Do not worry. I will make sure the match is organized fairly. Consequently, I have a little something for everyone. I promise that within an hour, all of you will be back to full strength." King Landhar III's voice summoned a group of golden armored guards, led by Hone, to the competition site, where they arrived with a tray in hand. They had a pot of wine and a cup of fruit juice in their hands, both from the tray. That is the fruit juice and wine made from the Forest of Eternity's sun and moon gems. That fruit takes its time to develop, soaking them in the spring of life's water for 1,000 years. The high concentration of vitality in the wine made from that fruit is excellent for treating injuries quickly. The Holy Dragon Tavern and other taverns in the kingdom do sell that wine, and a bottle would typically cost a ton of gold. However, His Majesty is kind and generous to share that wine for free. The sun and moon wine is available for those who can drink it, while fruit juice is available for those who cannot. Hone's voice spread far and wide via his aura, and those who heard it had different expressions. "It is wine made from the fruit of the Forest of Eternity. That wine is familiar to me. The Holy Dragon Tavern does have it for sale. When I first arrived in the city, I was eager to try it, but it was too expensive for me. I did not expect to get it for free from His Majesty," one of the contestants said. "That wine has the exact effect that His Majesty said it would have. It certainly has the potential to aid in the healing process for those who have been injured. It can also help those who have not achieved gold tier strength and awaken the cultivation talent for their light or dark elements. It is great. His Majesty only ever gave the full sun and moon fruits to 10 geniuses at a banquet before. I had no idea he would give so many now. No matter how they make the wine, it will still cost a lot of money." A young noble girl who had previously attended the royal banquet sighed. The three people from the Winter Nation were the most shocked, not the people in the crowd. The wine was brewed from the sun and moon fruits. I remember that those fruits are important items in the Elven Kingdom. Their rarity is not inferior to water from the spring of life. The Winter Nation spent a lot of money to get some spring water of life from the Elven Kingdom. We hope to use the water from the spring of life to create an undead army to destroy the Holy Dragon Kingdom. Normally, the Holy Dragon Kingdom should not have things from the Elven Kingdom. Did the Elven Kingdom make a deal with the Holy Dragon Kingdom as well as the Winter Nation? Ash's expression was one of shock as she muttered to herself. As the princess, she knew about most of the Winter Nation's plans. For that reason, they sent their ministers to the Elven Kingdom to discuss with the Elf King about countermeasures to take against the Holy Dragon Kingdom. Their presence at the Holy Dragon Kingdom to participate in the competition was also a part of that plan. As soon as they had gathered enough information about the Holy Dragon Kingdom, the Winter Nation and the Elven Kingdom would join forces to attack them. However, things had changed. A valuable artifact from the Elven Kingdom had been seen at the Holy Dragon Kingdom. That was not normal. Your Highness, don't rush to a conclusion. Perhaps that so-called wine brewed from the sun and moon fruits is just a gimmick. They might be brewed from other things. Let's taste them first, then we can understand what they are. Douglas consoled Ash. As he was from the Winter Nation, he was very good at drinking wine. Therefore, he had chosen wine. He drank a pot of sun wine that had a golden red color. Suddenly, he stopped talking. It seems that that wine is brewed from the sun and moon fruits, indeed. I can feel a trace of the spring of life aura in it. This is significant. Something from the Elven Kingdom has appeared in the Holy Dragon Kingdom. Maybe there is a deal between the two kingdoms. We must report this to the Empress on time. It seems that she was right to ask us to come to the Holy Dragon Kingdom to gather information. Ash drank a glass of moon wine. She felt a vibrant fragrance wantonly in her mouth, and then a comfortable coolness flowed through her limbs and bones. Then, she frowned. She stretched a finger outward, and a faint black light appeared on her fingertip. It was the product of a fusion between dark elements. Eating the sun or moon gem can raise a person to the gold tier. It does not affect any gold tier elite, but it will awaken their talent in light or dark elements. Even though the effect is weak, it is the same as the legendary moon fruit. Perhaps it's because there is only a small amount of the fruit in the wine. After drinking the moon wine, Ash confirmed that King Landhar III was not using gimmicks. The wine was made from the sun and moon fruits, indeed. The second round drew between 800 and 900 participants. It was possible to divide the wine or fruit juice amongst them. So, King Landhar III had to prepare 2,000 glasses of wine and fruit juice. He did say that the wine and juice were available at the Holy Dragon Tavern and other locations. A large number of sun and moon fruits had appeared to be in that area. It was a mystery how they got their hands on those exotic fruits in the first place. As Ash's mind was filled with doubts, Douglas had already poured some of the sun wine into Harold's mouth. The wound on his chest immediately healed. Then, he opened his eyes. With a confused look, he said, "Am I not severely injured? Why can't I feel any pain? And why am I here?" Harold guessed that he should have been eliminated by then. He should have been in the lounge or infirmary. He should not have appeared on the battlefield. Douglas explained faintly, "Harold, you've recovered because you just drank a bottle of sun wine made from sun gems. The sun fruit that is the Elven Kingdom's most precious treasure? That's too extravagant. Did the princess make the wine?" Harold looked at Ash gratefully. Ash was their princess, and the Winter Nation had signed an agreement with the Elven Kingdom. It would not be a surprise if Ash had one or two sun fruits with her. He did not expect Ash to shake her head instead. Pointing at the top of his head, she said, "King Landhar III gave us the wine. Everyone here has a bottle. Everyone got a bottle of wine made from the sun fruits. Did I hear wrongly?" Harold could not help but notice the other competitors had each poured themselves a glass of sun wine. In addition, there was moon wine as well as sun wine. Harold was in a good mood as he got to his feet. He could not stop staring in amazement at what he had discovered. Wine brewed from sun fruits? I've advanced to gold tier. I've recovered my strength, and I've also become stronger. I might be able to win the battle later, a participant muttered excitedly. My physical strength has also completely recovered. It won't even take an hour. I'll be able to recover fully after drinking that wine for a few minutes. I can use the remaining 50 minutes or so to warm up or observe the other contestants. It is not only effective, but the taste is also wonderful. His Majesty said that the wine is currently sold at the Holy Dragon Tavern and many other taverns. After the competition ends, I'll definitely go to those taverns and buy more of those wines to store at home. The rest of the people also praised the wine. Some commended the effect, while others admired the taste. His Majesty is indeed great, indeed. Using that wine during the competition will let everyone recover and gain a wave of goodwill from the contestants. It is also an opportunity to advertise the wine produced by the Severed Fingers Gang to become famous all over the kingdom. This will create a series of chain reactions. Perhaps there is also a purpose that I have yet to know. He is really cunning, indeed. Watson also picked up a glass of sun wine and downed it in one gulp. He clicked his tongue and raised his head to look at the sky. King Landhar III returned to the sofa and poured a glass of sun wine for the two envoys from the Winter Nation and said, "Come, the two of you, have a taste of the wine brewed from the forest of eternity's precious fruits. Then we won't stand on ceremony." The two envoys picked up the sun wine and drank it. They looked surprised. At the same time, a hint of solemnity flashed in their eyes. Obviously, as envoys, they also doubted the appearance of the sun fruit in the Holy Dragon Kingdom. While the two envoys were drinking, King Landhar III put the wine cup to his mouth and pretended to drink. However, his eyes were on the expressions of those two envoys. Sensing the indescribable solemnity in their faces, King Landhar III smiled. He downed the wine in his glass in one gulp. The envoys were there to gather intelligence. They thought he did not know about that. However, everything was going according to his plan. The appearance of the sun fruit will make the Winter Nation wary of the Elven Kingdom for an extended period. Next, it's time to implement the second phase of the plan. I have Watson to thank for that. With him around, the things that I had planned to complete in 10 years will probably be reduced to 1 year. An hour passed quickly. After drinking the wine, all the contestants rubbed their hands in anticipation, full of confidence for the upcoming battle. Then, King Landhar III's voice echoed in the sky. "Next is for you to draw lots. The remaining contestants have been counted, and the number is 801. Therefore, it is destined that some of you will not be able to participate in the first round of the battle. I hereby announce that the contestant who draws number 801 will immediately advance to the elimination round. If everyone is ready, then come to the drawing box that I have prepared." As his voice fell, Antonio's figure appeared in the sky. With a wave of his hand, a massive ball of light immediately appeared beside him. From the outside, it was impossible to see what numbers were inside. Once a human body entered the ball of light, the numbers inside the ball of light would automatically be imprinted on their body. Since it was made of magic, those numbers could not be forged or changed. Who will draw first? I'll do it. Let me do it first. Following Antonio's question, the contestants responded one after another. They spread their combat aura wings and flew into the sky to draw a number. Those contestants were at least gold tier. A small number of them were at peak silver tier. At that moment, everyone on the field was at least gold tier, so there were close to 1,000 young gold tier elites. That showed the Holy Dragon Kingdom's strength. It made the audience proud when they saw that scene. The drawing was done very quickly. There was a minor incident during that time. Augustus immediately went to Watson after he drew his number. He stretched his glove with the number 799 engraved on it and shouted, "Watson, I hope you can draw number 800. That way, we can fight each other in the first round." "Young Master Augustus, you don't have to be so anxious. I also hope that I can draw the number 800. Watson glanced at Augustus, went to the light ball in the sky, and stretched his arm into it. When he took it out again, he found that a 3-digit number formed by symbols appeared on his arm. The first two magic symbols formed the numbers 8 and 0 respectively. "Is it really 800? Watson raised his eyebrows and continued reading. When he saw the last number, he was stunned because it was the number 1. He had gotten the number 801. Casey, who had come up with him to draw the lot, let out a wail. "DMN it, 800. That's only one number away from 801. Why am I so unlucky?" Quote, Drawing number 800 meant that Casey would have to face Augustus later. For him, who used to be Augustus' follower, that was undoubtedly a huge challenge. Okay, now the owner of number 801 has appeared. He is my disciple, Watson. From now on, Watson will stay with me for the sake of fairness. Everyone, continue to draw lots. Antonio announced that Watson was the lucky one. Then, he gave the young man a look, which made Watson feel strange. He suspected that his master had helped him get that number. It had taken Antonio and Reed 2 days to agree on the king's competition. Watson had to win, no matter what. He would get to marry the princess and be a step closer to the king, and he would also be the next in line to inherit the throne. If Watson won, perhaps they did not need to stage a coup. They only needed to wait for King Landhar III to abdicate and declare Watson the new king. The risk of doing that was shallow, and everyone would be happy. Before the competition started, Reed and Antonio had agreed to do what they could to increase Watson's chances of winning. Did they come up with a name for the mission? Was that what the two masters called a secret operation? Watson could not help but think so, and the other contestants who heard Antonio's words looked disappointed. All of them wanted to be that lucky person. However, they did not think that Antonio had done anything to help Watson get that number because that was the king's competition. No matter how everyone respected Antonio, he would not play tricks in front of the king, right? Of course, they did not know that the king had a good relationship with Watson, so he would not care about such a trivial matter. After spending half an hour, the drawing was over. Charlotte got number 100, Lily's was number 200, Lana was number 555, Christina was number 680, and lastly, Casey was number 800. There are no strong opponents in the area between number 100 and number 200. But Sister Nia is number 600. After receiving her number, Charlotte looked at Lana and Christina worriedly. The rules of that elimination round were to defeat the opponents until the last person standing. It doesn't matter. She knows her strength, and she doesn't intend to win. Lana, who was holding the parasol, was very calm about Charlotte's words, while Christina looked in the direction of Nia. Her eyes were burning. We'll know who wins and who loses after the battle. If she had faced the ice demoness before, then she might be scared. However, she was not scared at all. After all, she had already grasped the kingdom of the sword, and no matter how strong Nia was, it was impossible for her to block a Starlight Tier attack. Since everything has already been explained, then I will officially announce the start of the competition. There will be 400 matches in the first elimination round. After that, there will be 401 people left. The remaining people will draw lots again. From number 1 to 401, the battles will start again. The person to draw number 401 will not have an opponent, and we will do the same until there are only 16 people left. Since this depends on drawn lots, former partners will inevitably compete with each other. I will not deliberately adjust to such a situation. After all, luck is also a part of strength. If everyone has no objections, let the competition begin. The venue of this round is not within the academy but the kingdom in the sky. That divine kingdom is the stage that I have built for the participants. As the voice of King Landhar III resounded throughout the entire Royal Academy, Antonio, who was in charge of guarding the light ball in the sky, raised a staff that looked very simple in his hand. The academy mages on the ground also raised their staff. Then, they released powerful magic that rose into the sky and gathered in midair before it turned into a divine kingdom. The shape of the divine kingdom was similar to the shape of the royal city. There were also 9 massive walls outside. The only difference was that the houses in the divine kingdom were not ordinary manors and houses. Instead, they were made up of magnificent temples and circular arenas. Participants could choose to fight in the arenas or temples of their own accord. That magnificent divine kingdom covered the entire sky as if it would descend in the next second, giving people a great sense of oppression and shock. How powerful is the astrologer to be able to create such a vast divine kingdom? Douglas sighed as he stared up at the night sky with the other 2 members. Harold's grouses of dissatisfaction could be heard right behind him. DMN it, Douglas, I got number 1, and you are number 2. We have already had our first encounter in the preliminary round. Is the so-called lottery a true reflection of public opinion? Just now, King Landhar III said that the lottery is not absolutely fair. Luck plays a part too. Even if the king set up our encounter, there's nothing we can do about it. After all, we're in their kingdom. Douglas lowered his head and said helplessly. Even if they knew that the king had deliberately arranged for the people from the Winter Nation to defeat each other, there was nothing they could do. Furthermore, there were 3 of them. No matter how they killed each other, there would be one left in the end. Therefore, the king's conspiracy would not be too effective against them. If that's the case, I'll just admit defeat when the battle starts. Harold smiled miserably, revealing his serrated teeth. I'm injured anyway. Although my physical strength has recovered, my mental state is not the best. I'll lose if I have to face that swordswoman again. You and Princess Ash are stronger than me. As long as any one of you can enter the finals, it'll be fine. Don't worry, Harold, I will win this. I wonder what the people of the Holy Dragon Kingdom will think when we win this thing. Douglas pushed his monocle upward and clenched his fists. The Divine Kingdom in the sky had already stabilized while they were talking. Antonio had used the crown staff to build it, and he did it with the help of other mages. He did not release the Divine Kingdom's power. He only kept up appearances. Although there was still a sense of pressure, it would not affect the performance of each contestant. However, a moderate sense of pressure would make the contestants feel more tense, and they would be able to display more power than usual. After the Divine Kingdom was formed, the 800 contestants took up a palace or an arena in pairs according to their respective numbers. They took up battle positions, with only Watson remaining on the spot. Then, Antonio waved his hand, causing the Divine Kingdom in the sky to become semi-transparent. The audience below could see the battles of each participant as long as they raised their heads. I announce that the second round has officially begun. Whoosh! The 800 contestants immediately began to fight. Victory and defeat were determined almost instantly on some of the fields. Ice flower bloom. Nia snapped her finger, and her opponent turned into an ice sculpture. The ice sculpture was the shape of an iris flower. Even the person inside it remained in an offensive posture. There was not even a hint of fear on their faces. On another battlefield, Platinum Tier fighting technique, infinite sword slash. Christina extended her hand and pointed at the enemy in front of her. Countless blades appeared on her body, cutting the entire arena around her. Her enemy fell to the ground after enduring 3 strikes. He voluntarily admitted defeat. In a specific temple, a young man dressed in colorful clothes that did not quite match the clothes of the people of the capital had a smile on his face. He held 2 scimitars in his hands. With just a flash, he had cut off the arm of his enemy. What surprised people was not that young man's actions but the scimitars in his hands. They had a platinum tier aura, as if the young man's strength could only burst because of the weapon in his hands. There were many elites who could crush their opponents, which led to the end of those exciting battles before many of the audience had the time to watch them. Of course, there was one very eye-catching spot in all the battlefields, and that was Augustus and Casey's field of battle. Augustus, we are old friends, so I'm here to give you a piece of advice. Surrender. That way, you won't have to fight Watson. That is a good thing for you and me. Quote, Casey, you've been trying to stop me from going against Watson ever since I first came to the capital. It seems like you're terrified of Watson. I don't know what happened between you and Watson when you were in the floating city, but... Augustus said, his eyes turned cold. But don't think that I'm the same as you, Casey. A coward like you can only be a follower. You followed me before, and now I heard that you're following Watson. You're really good at throwing yourself into the enemy's hands. Oh, right, that platinum tier sword, he gave you that, right? How many rounds do you think you can go through by relying on that sword? Augustus, what do you mean by being a follower? I'm a person who can judge a situation and can clearly see the gap between the enemy and myself. As for me following Watson, I'm not throwing myself to my enemy. I can bend where the wind blows. And Watson didn't give me that weapon. I bought it at a high price, Casey retorted. This platinum tier weapon is very powerful. Plus, I am much stronger now, and you might not be my match. I don't wish for this battle to destroy our relationship. You should stop. Why are you babbling so much? Casey, your words make me want to vomit. Burn, scum. The fire in Augustus' hand flashed and disappeared. Flames immediately surrounded Casey's body. Platinum tier fighting technique, sky connecting waterspout. Casey waved his platinum tier weapon in front of him. A waterspout immediately appeared, extinguishing all the flames that Augustus had summoned. At the same time, the huge waterspout rolled toward Augustus. You see, Augustus? I told you that you might not be my match now. Is that so? With a sneer, Augustus extended his finger toward Casey. The black glove covering his right index finger suddenly expanded as if the flesh below was rising and falling. As he moved, the waterspout that was approaching Augustus stopped moving. A layer of pale blue flame covered the dense water element. In just an instant, the waterspout had turned into a fire tornado. Furthermore, it was rolling toward Casey at an even faster and fiercer speed. What's going on? Hey, Augustus, you can control the platinum tier battle technique that I released? That is too heaven-defying. Make it stop. Do you intend to let it burn me to death? I admit defeat. Is that not enough? Casey looked at the approaching fire tornado and hurriedly raised the water dragon sky sword in his hand, trying to block the high-temperature flames. The platinum tier weapon that had always been victorious had lost its effect in front of Augustus. The pale blue fire tornado swallowed Casey. His entire body was covered in flames as he fell to the ground. His body gradually turned into a small black dot in the flames. That made him reach his hand outward anxiously and shout, "I surrender. I want to surrender. Ah, it hurts so much." As he said those words, a sky blue light screen immediately appeared in the Divine Kingdom. It washed over Casey's body, extinguished the flames on his body, and brought him to the ground. Before he fell, Casey looked at Augustus with a deadly gaze. His charred lips moved as he said with difficulty, "Augustus, I have always treated you as a friend. Since you are very similar to me, you must remember my words. Do not provoke Watson. Get lost." Augustus did not wait for Casey to finish speaking and rushed forward as if he wanted to crush Casey's head. Unfortunately, Casey's body had already turned into lights and was transported to the ground. He curled his lips slightly to express his dissatisfaction. Then, Augustus lowered his head, and his gaze penetrated through the transparent terrain and landed on Watson. A mere ant dares to say that he is very similar to me and even says that he is my friend? What a joke. I will not be friends with a coward. If he had defected to the enemy, then he should die with the enemy. Watson, I didn't expect you to be so lucky to draw an empty lot. However, your luck will not last. Casey's end will be your end. Watson also noticed the battle between Augustus and Casey. He did not feel sad when he saw the scarred Casey. Instead, it was Augustus' cold gaze that made him feel uncomfortable. He had a hunch that Augustus' victory would be because of one reason, to take revenge on him. Therefore, Augustus would not hesitate to attack the people around him. Fortunately, the first person to face Augustus was Casey. If it were Tina or Miss Charlotte, I would feel bad if they were injured in the battle against Augustus because of me, Watson thought to himself. He could not help but look at Antonio beside him and lowered his voice as he said, "Master Antonio, I hope that the Augustus next number will be separated from my friends. Otherwise, arrange my number next to his and let me finish him off with my own hands." Really, Watson, what are you talking about? Don't tell me that you think that I could control the numbers? No one can do that without His Majesty's authorization. Otherwise, even with my status, I will still be punished. So, you can't control the numbers. I was overthinking then. No, I didn't say that I could not control the numbers. I'm saying that the king told me to give you the empty lot. Did you make some kind of deal with him? So it was the king's intention. Watson understood it. He thought it was way too coincidental that he had picked the last one out of the 800 numbers. As for why the king had arranged it that way, he knew the reason for that, especially when the king had mentioned Kiana a few days ago. But if you let me get the last number, won't it cause dissatisfaction among others? Don't worry, Watson. As long as we don't say anything, how would the people find out about that? Antonio's face showed a proud expression. After waiting for almost an hour, everyone's battle ended. Most of the 400 winners dragged their injured bodies toward Watson. They were ready to draw the next lot. A new round of balloting has appeared. Watson has gotten the number 401. As Antonio's voice rang out, a heated discussion broke out among the contestants. They were not discussing Watson's luck but Antonio's fairness in the ballot system. DMN it. Why is it Watson again? Has he taken all the last numbers? Watson must have cheated in some way. Maybe because he is Master Antonio's disciple, and Master Antonio deliberately gave him the last numbers. That is really unfair. Yes, we must resist such a situation. His Majesty is holding a competition in the Royal Academy, and even commoners can participate. It has to be fair. However, someone is doing such a thing. He must be challenging the royal family's authority. All sorts of contestants were looking for reasons to attack Watson. They even requested to draw lots again. It was no wonder that they were fighting each other to the death in the arena in the sky, but Watson only needed to stand there, and he would be able to advance all the way. What right did he have to get that luxury? Augustus was the loudest in the crowd. He was still waiting to fight Watson and crush him on the spot, but he could not even touch him. That was too bad. Watson could only smile bitterly at those people's discussions. He knew that he had won the 2 draws in a row. The contestants would definitely feel that there was something fishy going on. He did not know why Antonio thought those people would not notice that. Since everyone feels that the draw is not reasonable, then I will organize another round. This time, I will not organize it. Instead, Master Reed will do it. It is reasonable, right? As he spoke, Antonio waved his hand and took back the numbers in everyone's hands. Then, Reed took his place at the and distributed the numbers to everyone. After that, he calmly announced, "The person who drew number 401 is Watson." It seems that Watson is really lucky. He did not cheat. One might call him the chosen one. I did not expect the Sword Saint to do this. The result of the draw is the same. Perhaps it's really not a conspiracy? Quote, "What? How is that possible? Master Reed and Master Antonio are the same. They are both Watson's masters. They're just changing from one hand to another. What's the difference? Draw again. Otherwise, we won't compete." The contestants were even more indignant at Reed's appearance. They pointed at Watson and cursed. Their voices were even louder. The problem had caused those contestants to be so emotional that they could not continue the competition for a while. Chapter 422, Watson versus Augustus. Everyone, don't be too unreasonable. Who do you think I am? Even if Antonio cheated, would I, a sword saint, cheat for my disciple? Faced with the voices of the contestants, Reed opened his eyes wide. Crisscrossing threads immediately appeared beside him. Those threads seemed to be connected to fate. They contained the aura of a god, causing the contestants to shut their mouths out of fear subconsciously. As expected of a sword saint, his strength was extreme. Even though they were afraid, they were still very dissatisfied. They only turned the scolding from their mouths into whispers in their hearts. "Reed, what are you saying? What do you mean by being different from me? You even said that I would cheat. As an astrologer, am I inferior to you, a sword saint?" "I am furious. However, I am magnanimous, and I am too lazy to explain myself to you. The competition takes priority. Since we are unable to gain the trust of those contestants, we can only let His Majesty come personally to draw lots." Although Antonio had left the drawing venue, he did not go far. After hearing Reed's words, he rushed back and complained unhappily. At the same time, his subsequent words caused a huge uproar throughout the venue. It was such an honor to let the king draw the lots himself. For a moment, the contestants were excited, and at the same time, they heaved a sigh of relief. The king would definitely draw the lots fairly. The king's purpose for holding that competition was to select geniuses. Judging from the king's generous behavior just now, it was impossible for the king to do such a thing. "Antonio, Reed, you guys have been derelict in your duties. How could you cause such a big mess and let me draw lots?" Fortunately, it did not affect the course of the competition. Otherwise, I would definitely hold you all accountable. Not long after Antonio's words, King Landhar III left the room with the help of a few mages in the sky. He floated in the air with his flying spell. "I'm sorry, Your Majesty. We are in the wrong. Although you may not have cheated in the drawing of lots, you are Watson's masters, after all, so you are still suspected of cheating. In that case, from now on, I will finish the draw." King Landhar III waved his hand and dismissed Antonio and Reed, starting a new round of draw. The draw ended quickly while everyone was anxiously waiting. King Landhar III looked around and asked lazily, "Let me see. Where is the person who drew number 401? Your Majesty, I have it." Under everyone's watchful eyes, Watson helplessly stretched out his right hand and showed the number 401 on it, attracting countless envious gazes. "That is already the 3rd time, right? To draw the same number 3 times in a row, what a small probability," a contestant said while gnashing his teeth. There would definitely be no problem with the number that the king had drawn personally. Since there was no problem with the king, then the problem was with Watson. Perhaps Watson used some method to get the last number, another person said, but was quickly interrupted by someone else. That is in front of His Majesty, the astrologer, and the sword saint. What method could Watson use not to be discovered? If that's the case, it also proves that Watson is strong enough that even the three important figures can't see through him. Or, it proves that Watson is simply lucky. Watson has drawn the last number 4 times. That is no longer luck. One might call him the chosen one. They had to admit that they had obediently consumed the sunfruit wine prepared by King Landhar III. After recovering their strength, they returned to the battlefield in the sky. They were ready to proceed with another elimination round. Watson's name as the chosen one was also spread to the audience seats, causing many to look at Watson with admiration. Strength was something that was easy to obtain as long as one trained, but luck was different. Many people did not envy powerful people, but they yearned for the luck that ordinary people did not have. At the very front of the audience seats, in seats that belonged to the royal family, the 3 princes sat anxiously as they watched the draw with interest. Interesting. Even father stood up for Watson. That teenager is really something else. The eldest prince's gaze was profound as he spoke first. After all, he is the disciple of both Reed and Antonio. It is very normal for father to accord him with some respect. However, after 4 rounds of drawing the same number, that is no longer about respect. It can be considered as an official decision, the thin and tall second prince said. He smiled. He was a prince, so he understood more than others that the so-called heaven's chosen one was all nonsense. Even though he was born into a royal family, his luck was not much better than an ordinary commoner. If his status and wealth had risen, his luck would have improved. He would have long made a wish for his brother and younger brother to die suddenly. That way, he would be able to monopolize the throne. Unfortunately, such a wish could not be fulfilled. It seems that father really likes that young man called Watson. I originally thought that the selection of geniuses was the main objective of the Royal Academy's exhibition competition. Now, it seems that the most important thing is to choose a husband for sister. Father seems to have a candidate in mind already. The third prince, who had been silent the entire time, had a silly smile on his face. He could not help but cast his gaze toward Kiana, who was sitting in front of the 3 of them. A trace of kindness and gentleness appeared in his eyes. As the youngest princess of the kingdom, Kiana would not participate in the competition for the future throne because she was a woman. The 3 princes had terrible relationships with each other, but they were all very fond of Kiana. Her marriage was important for them. Kiana could not help but frown. She looked at Watson, who was yawning. Her voice was delicate as she said, "My future husband must be a peerless hero. At the very least, he must be a prince of a certain kingdom. Only then will he be worthy of me. As for that boy named Watson, other than being Antonio and Reed's disciple, I can't see any good in him at all." It was the same at the banquet held by father last time. Everyone else consumed the sun gem given by father, but he did not eat it. He really knows how to act. I don't know how much effort father put in to get that precious fruit, but that boy didn't appreciate it. It was fine last time, but father is obviously protecting him so that he can enter the finals, though he looks like he's dozing off. It's really infuriating to watch. Kiana was born into the royal family. Although she was not taught the principles of a king, she learned some things from her experience. In addition, her 3 brothers were all outstanding. Whether it was her own strength or her understanding of politics and military affairs, she was superior to ordinary people. That made Kiana have a very high standard about her future husband. If her future husband were not a man who could write and hold the world in his hands, a man who could control the world with his martial arts, a man with outstanding talent, a well-read man, a man with a graceful bearing, a man who was handsome and unrestrained, and so on, she would definitely feel very bored if she married him. At the same time, she would not be able to stand proudly in front of her father and her brothers. Kiana, don't worry. If you don't like that person, even if father wants to appoint him as your husband, I will try my best to plead with father not to let you marry him. Third brother, it is not your place to say anything. I will do it. Eldest brother, third brother, you only know how to do these things. But how can you leave me out? I believe that if all of us reject this plan, father will reconsider it, even if he already has an idea in his mind. Quote, Kiana felt warm in her heart when she saw how her 3 brothers were fighting to stand up for her and were not afraid of being scolded by her father. Joy appeared on her delicate little face. She raised her head to look at the youth in the sky and wondered, although that youth looks pretty good, I am an outstanding woman who looks at one's ability more than appearance. If I am strong enough, I can accept him even if his face is full of scars and the soles of his feet are covered in pus. As for that youth, even though the rumors say that he is very strong, the rumors are only rumors. If Watson were powerful, why would he cheat in the competition? That was proof that Watson's ability was not good enough. Kiana pondered and secretly made up her mind. No matter what, she would not let Watson win that match. While they were discussing it fervently, the match in the sky was finally decided. The number of participants changed from 400 to 200. At that time, the participants looked even more tired. Even if there was alcohol that could restore their bodies, the mental tension caused by their successive battles could not be alleviated. That formed a sharp contrast with Watson, who looked very relaxed and even a little sleepy. DMN it, we are fighting fiercely up there, but that kid is so relaxed here. Later, if that kid doesn't get another last number, we must let him know how powerful we are and let him know the pain in our hearts. Many of them held their anger in their hearts and were prepared to let Watson taste their power. With that thought in mind, they participated in the draw. Soon, the result of the drawing of lots was announced. The person who drew the number 201, Watson. What the FCK? Why is it that guy again? Is he really the chosen one? Quote, even though the contestants were unhappy, they could only suppress their anger and return to the sky. The battle between 200 and 100 had begun, and after the match ended, a new round of drawing had begun. The result was the same. Everyone was already numb to that result. Watson had drawn number 101 and was exempted from the round. Everyone anticipated becoming that lucky contestant, but in the end, they had not drawn that number once. Watson had gotten the number multiple times. The number 100 would turn to 50 and then to 25 in the subsequent 2 battles, and Watson would not need the last number again. Instead, he would participate in the competition as the 26th participant. However, compared to Watson, who had been empty all along, by that time, the contestants were mentally exhausted and at a natural disadvantage against the well-rested Watson. Next was the round to trim 100 contestants to only 50 people. Who do you guys think will be the one to get the last number this time? It must be Watson. There's basically no need to think about it. That guy's luck is really not to be underestimated. With that level of luck, will his opponent be eliminated due to some unexpected situation so he doesn't have to fight later? If it's possible, I really don't want to fight against such a lucky opponent. His Majesty has said it well, when one's luck is at its peak, it is also a kind of strength. It seemed to have fulfilled the claims of many contestants. The remaining 50 contestants had no choice but to start the next round. The remaining contestants no longer had the same contempt they had for Watson in the beginning. If they envied Watson's good luck and were hostile toward the young man, they had no choice but to be wary of him. How did he get such good luck? Perhaps there was some unique technique, or it was a kind of magic in itself? Furthermore, was Watson just lucky? Could he change other people's luck? For example, he could make people unlucky. Facing such an enemy, they might suddenly have a heart attack because of their bad luck, or they might suddenly trip on their left leg and fall on their right leg. Those were all possible. In fact, they were frightened of those possibilities. At that moment, Augustus was fighting a young girl who was holding a platinum-tier weapon. She was so tired that she was panting. That young girl did not seem to be there to fight with him. Instead, she seemed to be there to show off her weapon. As she fought, that young girl pointed at the sword in her hand and said, "This platinum-tier weapon is called the Great Sunfire Sword. Its effect is to summon the sun wheel to attack the enemy. Furthermore, when the sun is bright enough, the power of this sword will become even stronger. This platinum-tier weapon is not part of the 10 platinum-tier weapons in the kingdom. Instead, it was made by a blacksmith in the capital. It is said that the method to make a platinum-tier weapon was provided by His Majesty. With His Majesty's approval, the quality of this platinum-tier weapon is absolutely guaranteed. The most important thing is that such a sword is only sold for 10,000 gold coins. Well, those 10,000 gold coins won't hurt your pocket. There is no catch at all. I am a young girl from a baron's family, and my strength was only at the peak of silver tier. However, because of His Majesty's Sun Fruit Wine, my strength rose to gold tier, and I was lucky enough to buy this platinum tier weapon and use it to be one of the last 50 contestants. What an honor it is. It was as if there was a loudspeaker installed in the girl's mouth. Not only did the audience below hear what she said clearly, but even the participants who were fighting in the other arenas could not help but look in her direction. When they saw the weapon in the girl's hand, they looked envious. There were 4 or 5 people like the girl, all of them holding platinum tier weapons, boasting about the weapons together. We're the same. If a person survived until the end of the competition because of a platinum tier weapon, that's an exception. However, all of us have survived until now, which proves the power of these weapons. That forging shop is now launching an event. Only 10,000 gold coins for a platinum tier weapon. The first 10 purchases will even get His Majesty's signature. There are so many platinum tier weapons in the royal city. It has been decades since a platinum tier weapon appeared in the kingdom. Does that mean that the kingdom is entering a new era of development? The audience were bewitched by the words from the sky, and their eyes lit up. Regardless of whether it is true or not, let's not talk about the quality of those platinum tier weapons. There is a chance to get His Majesty's signature. Later, I will buy 8 of them. I can keep those signed weapons for decades, and after the dynasty changes, they will become antiques of a previous dynasty. It will be a huge profit, and it can even become a family heirloom that has been passed down for generations. Another onlooker, dressed in noble attire, could not help but say the same thing. There were quite a few people like that in the audience. Watson stood in midair, hearing many similar words, and he could not help but sigh. Let the contestants use platinum tier weapons as a promotion by displaying them in front of people. That was originally Marcus's plan, but it has improved and made more feasible with His Majesty's participation. After all, in the previous plan, if those people with the platinum tier weapons encountered a truly powerful genius, they would very likely be killed instantly. If they did not even have the time to use their weapons, then they would not be able to display the weapon's true effects. After King Landhar III joined, that situation improved. After all, King Landhar III could control the order of the draw. He could separate those people who held weapons and, at the same time, prevent them from encountering a mighty opponent. It could display the performance of the weapons to the best effect. Other people might think that King Landhar III was there to recruit more talents. However, Watson knew that King Landhar III's recruitment of talents was just a side effect. His real purpose was to make money from the sun gems and platinum tier weapons. After the competition ended, those weapons and sun fruit wine accumulated by the Severed Fingers gang would sell like hotcakes. While Watson was lamenting, the battle in the sky had also reached its end. Those people who held weapons did not have much strength because they wanted to demonstrate the performance of platinum tier weapons. After entering the top 50, they had no choice but to be eliminated when they faced a situation where the probability of encountering a truly strong person increased. You're talking so much nonsense. It's really annoying. Are you here to fight or to sell weapons? Admit your defeat. Augustus raised his hand and released pale blue high-temperature flames, causing the young girl who was selling the great Sunfire sword to be covered in flames. Her entire body was charred black as she fell. The great Sunfire sword was a platinum tier fire elemental weapon. It could create up to 3 platinum tier sun wheels, protecting the girl. Unfortunately, her opponent was Augustus. After the modification, Augustus' strength far surpassed a platinum tier elite. Even if she had a platinum tier weapon, she would not be a match for him. Casey was a good example for that. After defeating the young girl, Augustus turned his head to look in Watson's direction. His patience was almost worn out. God knows how many battles he had fought, from 800 to 50 people, and each time he could not help but want to kill his opponent. Then, the number of people had finally become 25. It's a situation where the contestants had entered the odd number. Watson would have to join the competition. He would have a chance to meet Watson in the next battle. At the thought of that, Augustus could not help but clench his fists and breathe heavily. Contestants, thank you for the great battles that you have presented to me and the people of the kingdom. At this moment, the competition has finally entered the most wonderful part. Currently, including Watson, there are still 26 people left on the field. These 26 people will compete to be one of the 13 winners to enter the next round. At the same time, 3 of the losers will get the chance to be revived. They will enter the finals together with the 13 winners, with a total of 16 contestants. As for which of the 3 losers will be revived will depend on the audience. From now on, the audience will have the right to vote. The 3 losers with the highest number of votes will be eligible to be revived. However, please remember that you only have the right to vote once. Alright, let's cut to the chase. Let's start the final phase of the second round. The fights will no longer take place at the same time. Instead, it would be fought one after another. I guarantee that everyone will enjoy watching it even more. The atmosphere in the stadium peaked. It was already evening. Many contestants had already experienced countless fights since they started in the morning. The audience below the stage was not bored at all. On the contrary, they were excited because they knew that the ensuing battles would be more exciting. After all, the remaining contestants were all geniuses among geniuses, and no one would be left empty-handed. As they drew lots, the sequence of the fight was quickly decided. Lily, number 1, would go up against Charlotte, number 2. Lana, number 3, would go up against Douglas, number 4. Ash, number 5, would go up against Eamon, number 6. Christina, number 7, would go up against Nia, number 8. Also, Augustus, number 25, would go up against Watson, number 26. I'm number 25, and Watson is number 26. Finally, we can fight. After the drawing of lots, Augustus could not help but be excited. He turned his gaze toward Watson, and the other teenager happened to turn his head in midair, his gaze colliding with Augustus. Of course, if they were to lose, they would still have an opportunity to revive their standing. However, with the revival, they would only be competing for the kingdom's 16 genius rankings. There was no hope of winning. For Augustus, the upcoming battle would determine both victory and death. Only one of him and Watson would survive. As the battle between the two of them was the last match, the two of them returned to the audience seats with excitement and waited. I did not expect Watson's first opponent would be Augustus. Watson had defeated Augustus once, causing Augustus to sit in a wheelchair for almost a week. Would it not be a definite victory against Augustus? Is that Watson's luck? When Augustus left the arena, he heard many discussions from the audience. Many people knew that Augustus had been defeated by Watson in the Holy Dragon Tavern and hung on the plaque. Therefore, everyone felt like Watson could win the fight easily. Of course, some people refuted it. Looking at Augustus' performance in the previous competition, it's obvious that his strength is much stronger than before. He could even defeat a person with a platinum tier weapon. I wonder what kind of potion he took to increase his strength before the competition, or did he undergo some inhumane training? In short, Augustus' strength is still something I am looking forward to seeing. Those rebuttal voices were tiny among the voices that questioned Augustus, making Augustus feel very uncomfortable. You guys just keep thinking like that. When the time comes, I will let you all understand what a real battle is and see the gap between Watson and me. When the time comes, when you see my true strength, I believe that all of you will stand up and cheer for me. Augustus sat down with his eyes closed. He reached out and touched his thick clothes. He had experienced many battles since the start of the competition. Logically speaking, he should be sweating profusely in such thick garments. In reality, he did not sweat at all. Even his breathing did not change. Only the increasingly intense heartbeat in his chest and the confident expression on his face showed his confidence in the upcoming battle. Following the draw, Lily and Charlotte soon arrived in the sky. The two stood face to face and smiled bitterly. Charlotte, I didn't expect the last round of battle would be between you and me. I thought that we had a chance to enter the third round together. Lily, we are no match for the real geniuses. We are lucky to be able to enter the second round. And I have always wanted to compete to see who is stronger. Only the winner can enter the next round, and the loser can't cry. Of course, Charlotte, are you underestimating me? It's a promise. If one of us loses, we'll treat the other to a meal at the Holy Dragon Tavern. The dishes we order must include platinum tier magical beast meat and sunfruit wine. How about that? It's a deal. After a short conversation, Charlotte and Lily quickly took out their staff and started the battle. Both of them were mages. Lily was a gold tier light and dark elemental mage with a fire element. On the other hand, Charlotte was a light and dark elemental mage with an ice element. Their light and dark elements were awakened after they ate the sun and moon fruits at the Holy Dragon Tavern. Both of them were mages with 3 attributes. Their battle was like looking in a mirror. All kinds of light and dark spells clashed in the sky and dissipated. However, it was the fire and ice spells that determined the outcome. On Lily's side, flames surged into the sky and condensed into a giant python in the shape of a flame. On Charlotte's side, icebergs stood tall, and a lion made of ice roared. Ice and fire, lions, and giant pythons. The girl who controlled the two expanded together in the air and created an explosion. The entire arena used for the competition was on the verge of collapse. Amidst the fog created by the combination of ice and fire, Lily laid on the ground. She had lost consciousness. Meanwhile, Charlotte raised her staff with difficulty and fell to the ground. "I won the match." Charlotte revealed a relieved expression and fainted with burns all over her body. Charlotte had won the first match. That match between two girls made the audience sigh in admiration. As expected of a genius from an archduke's family, she had mastered 3 types of magical elements. It's really exciting. They were also looking forward to the following matches. The next few matches were far less exciting than the first match. In the second match, Lana fought Douglas. The third battle was similar. Although Eamon had platinum tier strength, the strength that Ash displayed was above platinum tier. In addition, every move Eamon made was pierced by Ash. After a few rounds, Ash found Amon's weakness and defeated him. The battle between Christina and Nia was very much anticipated. However, in reality, the two women only used one move to determine the winner. Christina cast the Kingdom of the Sword that she had used during the elimination round. The majestic Kingdom of the Sword seemed to want to cut off Nia's entire body. Everyone thought that Christina would win with that. However, no one expected that Nia only needed to use her right hand to catch the Kingdom of the Sword easily. When the Kingdom of the Sword touched her right hand, a layer of ice rapidly condensed on it. The Kingdom of the Sword and Christina were frozen into ice cubes. The battle ended in that dramatic scene. Seeing that scene, Watson could not help but frown. Nia managed to withstand that Starlight tier attack. Even though it's not an actual Starlight tier attack due to Tina's limitation, it is still not something that an ordinary Diamond tier elite could dodge. Is she also a Starlight tier elite? But her aura showed that she was only at peak Gold tier. What's going on? With doubts in his heart, Watson suddenly remembered that Charlotte had told him to be careful of Nia. If he really could not defeat her, he should admit defeat. He did not take it seriously before, but he had to change his mind about that. As the match continued, Watson stopped thinking about Nia and started warming up. Finally, the match came to an end after a few exciting matches. The penultimate match has ended. The winner is Cosette, a wandering warrior from outside the Holy Dragon Kingdom. Next is the last round. Contestant number 25, Augustus, will fight against contestant number 26, Watson. That match is also the finale of this round. Who will win it? Let's wait and see. Under the cadence of King Landhar III's voice, Watson and Augustus rose into the air and flew toward the Divine Kingdom in the sky. Watson, you must hold back later. Don't kill Augustus. Although Augustus has beaten me to such a state, I don't want you to avenge me. Before Watson rose into the air, Casey, who had left the competition early and came to the audience seats, held the Platinum Tier Water Dragon Sky Sword to relieve the pain. His voice came from the gaps of the bandages that covered his face. Don't worry, Casey. Augustus and I will fight because of our own will. It has nothing to do with you. I have no intention of avenging you in the first place. Casey continued awkwardly. All right, Watson, since you put it that way, I don't need to say anything else. Just like Augustus is my friend and you are my friend, I have already persuaded Augustus to show mercy to you. Oh, right, no matter which one of you wins, can you push my name into the final round? I also want to enter the final round as one of the 16 people. You and Augustus are so powerful, so with a little push from either of you, my chances of entering the final round will be greatly increased. Casey's shameless words made the corner of Watson's mouth twitch. Lana, who was also eliminated, sat beside Casey. After hearing that, she could not help but sigh. Brother Casey, don't think about that anymore. With your strength, even if you enter the final round, you will still be inferior to others. And to be honest, your words are completely powerless. If you try to persuade Augustus to stop, it might have the opposite effect. How is that possible, Lana? Augustus listens to me. Even when I told him not to fight with Watson, He did not even think of killing me, though he was angry. He only injured me and eliminated me. Isn't that a sign of friendship between us? Quote, Brother Casey, I don't think we should be sitting here right now. This competition is no longer important to you. You should go see a doctor. Lana, how can you talk to your brother like that? Just wait and see. I believe that under my influence, Augustus and Watson will definitely develop a friendship. Is there a doctor here? Someone is sick. Quickly, come and treat him. Ignoring Casey and Lana, who were acting like clowns, Watson took a step forward and entered the Divine Kingdom battlefield in the sky. That was the first time he had stepped into that place, and it was also the first time he had made a serious move in that exhibition competition. As soon as he entered, he felt the pressure. That pressure did not come from the Divine Kingdom but the enemy opposite him, Augustus. Watson, I've finally waited for you. It's been too hard for me to wait for you to fight. Fortunately, I waited until the end of the second round. Finally, you and I are on both sides of the battlefield. Isn't this the grandest and most satisfying stage ever? Augustus opened his hands in front of Watson. The thick clothes on his body fluttered in the gradually cold wind, coupled with Augustus' fiery red hair and fanatical expression. However, he seemed to not care about all of that. His gaze was locked tightly on Watson as if there was no audience in that world, no king, or even a battlefield. There was only him and Watson. I've been waiting for this moment for quite a long time. Come, Augustus. I hope that the battle between us can end as soon as possible. That way, I can still make it for dinner when I get back. Quote, Watson pulled out the holy relic, the holy sword of time, from his back calmly. Then Watson, I'll do as you wish. Augustus extended his right hand toward Watson. Diamond tier fighting technique, divine fire that burns everything. The sky changed color as pale blue fireballs appeared in the sky. They burned through the clouds, leaving a long flaming tail in the sky as they headed straight for Watson. The entire sky was instantly covered by pale blue fireballs, illuminating the land in blue color. That scene made many of the audience stand up. Even though a layer of the Divine Kingdom separated them, they could still feel the temperature rising, and they were nervous that those fireballs would fall through the Divine Kingdom. That had never happened before in the previous battles, and Augustus had not used such a powerful move. That made everyone guess whether Augustus had an even more powerful move. Newman, was Augustus that powerful before this? In the Campbell family's stand, McGee glanced at the sky. His hand was stroking the chair uneasily as he asked Newman, who was sitting beside him. Newman, who was also looking at the sky, had a complicated expression mixed with grief. He hesitated for a long while before he said, the Augustus of the past might not have been this powerful, but the situation is different now. Augustus has undergone a complete transformation in the past few days. Even Father, who has been dealing with magical tools and puppets for decades, could not stop praising his transformation. Augustus is now standing at the peak of the kingdom's geniuses. Even the sword saint and master Antonio can't defeat him, let alone someone from the younger generation. Second brother, is that true? Augustus has undergone such a huge change in such a short period. What did Father do to him? His third sister, Freya, could not help but ask. That is a secret. However, as long as you continue watching, you will probably find out soon. In the entire family, other than Armand, he was the only one who knew that Augustus had been locked up in the laboratory for 2 days. At that moment, looking at Augustus in the sky, Newman could not help but feel a little heartache. You've ruined your entire future to defeat Watson. Augustus, is it really worth it? If it was a few days ago, I might not have thought so. But after seeing you working so hard today, I finally understand your persistence. Augustus, if that is your wish, then go bravely. No matter what you do, crippling Watson or killing him, I will support you. Be like the name bestowed on you, the dark consul in the past that swept 7 kingdoms. Be like him and crush the obstacles in front of you. Let everyone see the strength of our will.